Shadows Literary License podcast episodes. Ben Stokes here, exploring all things Collinsport, Maine, and following the likes of the Collins family and the friends and foes with your co-hosts Tom Diamond, Jesse Fultz, Vickie Ray, and Keith Chalgo. Collins family, story about blood relations, literally.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast. In this Dark Shadows week, where we'll be discussing episodes from February 1969 to March 1969, or episodes 681 to 721. Then, who do we have with us today? We have Vickie Ray with us. Hello, Vickie. How you doing?
Hi.
And Jesse Fultz.
Hey, how's it going?
And Tom Diamond.
Last but not least, and hopefully not least either. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
And I'm your host, Keith Chalgo. And before we get started, let's find out what we've been up to. Starting with you, Tom. What have we been up to since last time we've seen you?
Busy with the online course and that I'm teaching, and experiencing the trials and tribulations of being an adjunct. And the bottom line, and I'm not going to go into a million things. Actually, I'm going to continue this next month with something else. But the bottom line is, you, depending upon your boss, an adjunct professor can be a joy. You got to love the students, though. You got to love dealing with the students and helping them out. But it can either be absolute joy or an absolute horror. And I've experienced both already. But that watching, we're watching All in the Family, that marvelous, iconic show from the 70s with Carol O'Connor and Jim Stapleton, on the 7th season now of 9 seasons. And I'm just glued to it. I mean, I've watched some of it in the 70s. We all did on Saturday nights. People stayed home in order to watch that show, but I never saw all of them, and they just came out on IMDb.
They're on IMDb. I didn't know that.
The whole thing is on IMDb.
Oh God, man! Scott finds out, I'll be All in the Family widow. Yep.
And what else? Oh, and I was going to mention that we were just talking about this. Lost in Space is the final season is going to be in December. I think
that's a third season. That's a third season, isn't it?
Third and final season.
Yeah, they could do so much more. But I wish they would go 4 seasons.
That's a shame. Well, the creators are saying they always expected it was going to be a trilogy, and so this is the final act of the trilogy, so to speak. And I think Outlander, is coming back next year for the 6th season.
It should be coming back like in February, I think.
You heard February?
That's what they're saying.
Okay, well, that's better
because I only get Stars long enough to watch that. Then I get rid of Stars again. But I love Outlander. It's fantastic. It really sticks with the books. I love all of DeBalden's books. She's just a brilliant writer.
And there will be at least 7 seasons, so you can look forward, I think.
There's quite a few books, and they're all this thick. So there's going to be some more coming. I don't think she's done yet.
Keep talking about that. So, that's the. And I think it's raining outside in Florida, so you might hear some nice rain music and stuff like that. So that's what's going on with me, Keith.
And what about yourself, Jess? What have you been up to?
School, more school.
That's so good, though. We're proud of you.
Yeah, and not to toot my own horn, but it is nice to finally be recognized as an honor student, because that was.
Are you on the honor roll?
Yes.
Awesome! Congrats, Jess.
Are you in the honors program, or the dean's list, or what is it?
Yeah. I'm on the dean's list. Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you.
And I got invited to be a part of Phi Kappa Delta or something.
Good for you.
And
good for you.
I've never really been a part of that, in high school and stuff. So it's a totally new thing for me.
I was in a fraternity.
Possible. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. And I went to tour another
Kappa Sig.
campus to like consider. I considered transferring after this to UConn. I don't know if anyone is familiar with
I know
University of Connecticut?
UConn. I spent many weekends at UConn back in the day.
Oh, really?
Go crashing. So from New Hampshire to UConn. So yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a really cool
Good
like
school, sweetie.
digital media. They have like a bunch of different classes and stuff that would really fit what I'm trying to do, and they're thinking in ways that I didn't think people were thinking of. I thought it was just me thinking these ways and trying to make things more important, I guess. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, they seem to be doing some innovative thinking over there, so I kind of like that, especially because what I want to do is like be more involved in like storytelling, and whether that's through like TV shows or video games, something. I don't know, anywhere. I want to get my stories out there somewhere, somehow, because I have so many cool ideas, I feel like. But yeah, that's what I've been doing recently, and I also did a ghost hunt at the Bradley Playhouse, which is also where I'm doing the Night of the Living Dead, because we have a few spirits there apparently. And I've never heard of this. I've never heard of this before, but there seems to be a ghost that has kind of a multiple personality disorder, for lack of a better term, because
Is it a ghost, or is that just Vickie?
No, it's the ghost.
I'm rolling my eyes.
There's a ghost named Abigail who, what did they say? Did they say she was like from the 1800s or something? Don't quote me on that, because it could be wrong. I don't remember her history, but on the downstairs platform in the audience, if you go over there, she, I think, refers to herself as Abigail, but then when she goes up the stairs, she becomes like a slave girl named Abby. So rather than like a wealthy, hoity-toity kind of version of herself, she goes up the stairs and becomes like a slave girl named Abby. It's totally bizarre. I've never heard of it. How did they
come to the conclusion she's a bipolar or has multiple personality for a spirit? I'm kind of interested in that.
Through a medium. A psychic medium was there with a bunch of other people that had equipment, but they have two different mediums there that work in different ways. One of them is solely through like the really high positive stuff, and the other one comes more at it from like a humanistic approach. I don't really know what that means. Maybe that could be. But there's like a few different spirits there, and I thought that was very interesting. There's another one named Victoria that's in the basement, and my roommate is a skeptic, and when he came with, he actually had his own weird experience that no one else had, so he kind of is like wondering what that was now, because they had like these two triggered flashlights that are supposed to go off only when a spirit touches it, and they showed that when you do something with it, it doesn't turn on, and so only certain frequencies make it turn on. And he was like alone by himself while there was some other group of people trying to do like a weird version of a seance. I don't really think they were doing it right, because it wasn't like very focused at all. It was just kind of like, it was too loosey-goosey for me, so it didn't seem to work. But he had his own experience in like the dark, and there was no lights on.
Is he still a skeptic?
Like, no, he actually, the thing is, I don't think he was ever a skeptic. I think what it was that he was afraid to confront it, because, I mean, if you believe in God or like talk about God or other spirits and things like that, I feel like you have to believe in the supernatural, because you can't have one without the other. So
I think it's supernatural when you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think what it is fear of things beyond your control, things beyond your sight. And I've tried to like explain that to him and other people that claim to be skeptics, but yet claim to believe in other things. Like, you can't believe in God, but then not believe in like hell or the devil or whatever. All of these different things have to exist if one thing exists, if that makes any sense at all. What else? Yeah, my playhouse, at the playhouse, Bradley, I can't talk. I can't think. No, the Night of the Living Dead is going pretty well. We have a good, decent number of people showing up every night, so that's always good. I almost had my contact pop out, though. I had a scary incident where the contact I was wearing, because for some reason this eye always gets drier than my other eye.
I cannot put those things in my eyes. I
didn't bring eye drops, but this one's always fine. I never feel the contacts when I put them in, but because I have to hold my eyes open like I'm staring at people like a zombie. This eye always gets way dry, and I didn't bring my eye drops, so it got stuck to the upper lid of my eye and then rolled back a little bit.
No, stop God. Right there, stop.
So I had to go back and fix it really quick, and after the play was over, I took them out. Yeah, I had to take it.
I hate eyeball anything. When I hear about things getting stuck behind, it's cringeworthy.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking because you don't know how far back they go. But yeah, I've heard that line so many times.
No.
They're coming to get you, Vickie.
I know. It's just like, no.
I almost played Johnny. For this, but instead I just became a zombie.
What about yourself, Vix? What have you been up to?
Well, I don't have any problems with my eyes. Not anymore. Hang on. Good.
Your dog agrees with you.
My dog is agreeing. The poor Amazon man. Hopefully it isn't. But no, we haven't been up to a whole lot, actually. It's just we're getting Asher's birthday's coming up this weekend, and they're still not in their house. So we're just trying to figure out, well, we're going to just have a little party for him, and then we'll just do his big thing in a couple of weeks. But
happy birthday for me.
Yeah, he's not here. He's in school, but I'll make sure I let him know. But did any of you guys watch The Manor with Barbara Hershey? Did you catch that? Any of you? That was really good.
It's not The Haunting of Bly Manor, is it? No.
No. It's just this movie about Barbara Hershey. She still looks good.
Yeah.
Beautiful. My goodness.
What show was she on? She's been doing a few things.
I don't know what else she was on, but this is her newest. I just hadn't seen her out and about as of late, and it was just nice to see her get back in the saddle again. And I finished them finally because it was a really disturbing, well written. Was it Ty West did that? I believe. I think me and Joe were talking about that.
Yeah, it's part of the Blumhouse.
Yeah, it was excellent. I thought it was really good. And I watched that ever popular Halloween Kills that everybody's just going crazy about. You either loved it or you hated it. It's not that bad, folks. If you really if you're a fan of it.
The new Halloween movie?
Halloween Kills, yeah. It's really, I liked it. I don't care. Well, there's just a couple things in there I would have done differently, but that's why I'm not a director. But it's a setup for a second one. But at least the story has some continuity, because me and Keith were always kidding around, because if you put them all together, the franchise, they all don't have anything to do with each other, basically, except for maybe 1, 2, and this one. And so I believe they're going to do another one, because I'm not going to say what happened, but Laurie Strode's going to be really pissed off at the end of this movie. That's all I got to say. But
I've seen,
it looks good.
But I've seen a behind the scenes with Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like an interview thing, and I kind of got interested in it. I hate how they take like old classic horror films and they try to like do things with them, even if it has the same actors, because it never feels like the same movie, or like even the same director or the same writers or anything. It doesn't feel like the same thing. So I was kind of hesitant to watch it, but if it's good, I'll see it.
I think it's worth a watch, and it was really kind of fun to see people come back. Like you had the little boy. Well, who was it played him? It wasn't the little boy that played it in 1978. Yeah. But you had the original Lindsay comes back. Lindsay.
Oh yeah.
That's all you can remember is Lindsay. But
they invited a lot of the same people from the original.
And it was just kind of interesting. And the kills were brutal. The kills were spectacular. Okay. So that's how I do things, by kills. I liked all the kills. So big thumbs up for just kills alone. But it was. I'm looking forward to the fourth installment in this particular.
Oh, speaking of old classics, did anyone see any of the previews that Rob Zombie was sending out for his Monsters film?
Oh, God, everybody's hating on Rob and Sherry Moon.
What do people think of that? Because I'm kind of intrigued.
People are losing their minds over that, too. In all the forums, thank God I'm banned from Facebook for the last week. I got one more day to avoid it. I haven't really missed it, to tell you the truth. But everybody's just freaking out and bad-mouthing Rob Zombie and his wife. It's like he's going to put her in. That's what they're partners. for everything.
No, I saw her in the makeup. I saw all of them in their makeup,
She
and they look pretty good. Actually, they look really good. So I am actually kind of
people are going to hate it or they're going to like it. They either love or hate Rob Zombies. It's like leave them alone.
And I know he loves like the Addams Family and the Monsters. So usually when people have a love for something, they usually do it justice, even if they do put their own spin on it. And that's what I want to see. I almost wonder if he's going to go like in a full horror route, or if he's going to keep the same kind of campy.
Who knows with him? I mean, when you think there's got to be, he would have to take a stab at comedy, don't you think, as well?
Yeah, I mean, he already does that in his film. So I think the air that he has within all of his other films, I think it would work for this. Even if they did go a more like gory horror route, I'm not sure how you could do that with the Monsters. But if he has an idea, I'd definitely be up to seeing that, because like
I would stay off the horror forums. If you want to watch a movie, don't go in for all the buzzkills. Just form your own opinion. It's a movie. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not the end of the world.
You would think, over Halloween Kills, we were having another election. The way everybody was acting. My goodness. It's just like Twitter's like, it's not for the faint of heart, man. If you disagree with somebody on Twitter, they're going to get your license, your phone number, your address. Just, seriously.
You'll get doxxed.
The fights I was watching about Halloween, I just like, wow, these people are just, they're just going off.
Horror fans are really passionate.
I know they're passionate. They don't beat each other up over somebody else's movie that they made. It's an opinion.
They'll slice your neck open. They'll do all of the kills that they see in their favorite horror films on you if you contradict them. So
yeah. Well, they are giving Rob Zombie kind of a bad rap the last few weeks.
Everyone always does, and I've never, like, every movie that I've watched, I've never had a problem with. Like, I like that it's
I don't have a problem.
I like that it's original, and I like that he's doing stuff that no one else is really doing. And I mean that takes more balls than what everyone else in Hollywood is doing. Which most movies.
I'd like to see him do a reboot of Cannibal Holocaust. That one would be so worthwhile to see. It's like, please.
Well, maybe. Oh, yeah, you can tell him that.
No, that was the Green Inferno, and it was not near gross enough. Eli did not put hardly any. There was not a good bunch of good kills in there. That wasn't Cannibal Holocaust, was it?
Green Inferno.
Was that the same one?
Green Inferno. It was along the same line.
But it was his idea. It was his version of Cannibal Holocaust.
There was Cannibal Ferox, and then there's Cannibal Holocaust.
But you can't do the animal thing anymore anyway.
Well, no, I wouldn't think you could. I was crawling under the table when I saw that. So, because I like animals more than human beings, so that was that.
Isn't Rob Zombie now he's doing something with the Munsters, isn't he?
Yeah,
and it looked and the set looked very, very, the Mockingbird Lane building.
Yeah,
very, very. Yeah, I mean,
the Mockingbird Lane house is what Bree from Desperate Housewives. That's her house. 1313
Mockingbird Lane.
That's whose
house? Yeah,
house?
but that house in that movie, in that TV series, is what they use in Desperate Housewives.
Oh, no wonder.
No kidding, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's Bree's house. If you remember the Marcia Cross, the red-haired one, remember her house, the blue one? That's the Munster house.
I didn't know that.
Interesting.
How interesting.
I guess it's still standing. Is that supposed to be a comedy or a straight horror?
You're going to have to go back towards
the zombie monster thing. Is that supposed to be a
comedy?
Yeah,
it's going to have to be, don't you think?
That's the problem with the monster movie is that it's going to be really hard to do. Comedy horror is very hard, so let's see see if he pulls it off. That's going to be the difficult part of it. So,
well, look what happened with the 2012.
I've seen. Well, oh shoot! What was the last one? Was it 3 from Hell? I thought that was that had a good balance.
I love 3 from Hell. That's one of my favorite
those
movies.
Are so good. And I like how I've noticed that these characters that he's created, like even in the songs, the like ideas and characters that he creates in music videos and the songs he actually includes in his movies too. And I didn't realize that right away, because I think on the same album as 1,000 Corpses, there's a song called "Free from Hell" or something. If I'm not mistaken, something like that. Something that has to do with them, at least. So I thought that was cool that there's this kind of weird continuity in stuff.
Yeah, House of a Thousand
I've been
Corpses.
delving more into
I
that.
like all of his movies. I mean, he's got some really serious kills in his movies. He doesn't,
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's blood cannons everywhere. He doesn't spare the blood.
Oh yeah, like that one chick after she escapes, she just gets run over by a giant semi.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god,
Like,
it was like so gross, but it was like the only time I ever laughed watching a horror movie. Typically, that doesn't make me laugh.
It was kind of random, I have to admit.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what you would expect, because every one of these movies that you watch, the girls go running out into the street all bloody and stuff, and they never get run over. A lot of times people will pass them, but that's what happens when you run out in the street. Most of the time you're going to get run over because people aren't paying attention.
Yeah, so we're
also, if Butch Patrick approves, which he seems to, because he takes a lot of pictures with Rob Zombie. I've seen them in some of their posts, and I thought that was kind of cool that he's actually, like, I wonder if he'll make a cameo with Butch Patrick in the actual movie, because that would be
interesting, because everybody else is dead. Maybe Pat? No, is Pat Priest still alive?
I don't know.
She died recently.
Yeah. She died recently. So
what about the first one? Because they used two
Beverly Owen. Beverly Owen.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's still around. Yeah, she left to get married. You know the story with that.
Who's playing Marilyn in this one?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know.
And Deborah Wally, I think, played her in the movie, in the Munster Go Home movie. But Beverly Owen actually, I thought Pat Priest was a better Marilyn than Beverly Owen.
Marilyn was the plain one of the family.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we should.
The weird one.
I always like it when they have the chirping.
She's your sister's kid. That's what Gwyn's Herman Munster. She's your sister's kid.
Poor Marilyn.
You're not kidding, poor Marilyn. Oh my God.
I mean, if you consider like an Addams Family spin, I mean, when the Addams Family movie was going, there's a lot of they're not going to be able to pull this off because the TV series is so iconic. But they did pull it off at the end of the day. So,
do you mean like the CGI one, or
no? I'm talking about the
live action with
Angelica Houston one and Raul Julia.
Okay. Right.
If you cast it really well,
Raul Julia
those were actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I think Wednesday Addams.
Christina Ricci as Wednesday Addams.
Exactly.
So. Yeah, I see
everyone quote her all the time.
Christina Ricci.
There's so many. It's weird because the Night of the Living Dead has attracted so many different like horror fans and like goth cultured people. So a lot of them always refer to like Wednesday Addams or make Wednesday Addams like jokes or quotes or something. So it's kind of funny how so many people come together to do Night of the Living Dead because they're all like into this
who plays.
Lisa Loring, by the way, who played Wednesday in the original when she was a kid, she went on to be on As the World Turns, from what I understand. When she was an adult, she was on As the World Turns.
Trying to figure out who that is.
Little Wednesday from the original series.
Yes. You're right.
She went on to become I don't know who she played on As the World Turns.
I mean, the Munsters was actually a lot more slapstick than the Addams Family was. So
exactly.
No, it's true.
But the Addams Family lasted another 1 year longer. And these are lost now, but the Carolyn Jones was on. There was a special Saturday version of the Hollywood Squares, if you remember that show with Peter Marshall. And they dressed up as cartoon characters for the Saturday morning version for the kids of the Hollywood Squares. And of course, Carolyn Jones came on as Morticia. And so she would sit right in the center. I remember that. It was really cute. And I'm surprised they don't have that on YouTube yet. But those were very interesting shows. That, of course, in 275 gets us on the subway now.
I mean, Addams Family as well. I mean, comes from a comic strip.
Charles Addams.
It comes from, and basically it was gothic humor anyway.
Right.
Was that in New York?
What you saw in the movie and the TV show was just basically gothic humor. It's like, do you mind if I smoke? And then she would actually.
And that was very well done. So,
yeah, I remember that.
That was very well done. So if you're talking about horror comedy,
yeah, I forgot about that.
Comedy. I mean, Munsters was like little kid stuff, but the Addams Family was really adult horror comedy. And
was Lily supposed to be a vampire?
Yes.
I think she's supposed to be a mix of that, but also the Bride of Frankenstein because she's married and has this white chick.
I've often wondered because they never really say.
They did say that she was a vampire because she was Grandpa's daughter, and Grandpa was the Dracula equivalent. But they didn't have Lily biting anybody, and he would.
Grandpa never did either.
Well, he'd take a nipple. He tried to take a nipple off the wrist, that kind of thing. They did a little,
which is weird when you think about it, because if she's also like a vampire and his daughter, it's kind of weird that he's trying to take a bite of her.
Maybe there's
that's just a whole other podcast.
No, I think incest has had something to do with that.
Because it's weirdly sexual to see something like that, but then you remember, oh wait,
that's daddy.
It's kind of awkward.
I loved it though.
Yeah, it's weird.
I loved it when John Carradine
biting Willie in the wrist. Did
you know that John Carradine, and this was just for fun, on the original Munsters, played Mr. Gateman, the mortician, because Herman worked for the mortician. And naturally he worked, and Mr. Gateman was played by John Carradine. And he came on every once in a while and did a couple of comedic stints. That was very funny. That was the only time they ever did that. But we're doing Dark Shadows. We're not doing the Monsters. So
I'll get off on that tangent real quick.
I'll shut up.
So easy. I apologize. That's my fault.
No. Don't worry. Time passes when you're having fun, right, Keith?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I've been up to, I went and finished the series You on Netflix, which I highly recommend.
I still haven't started. I watched the first 2 episodes and I still haven't finished watching it. My daughter loves it.
Oh, it's so good. And then I've watched another Australian series that's on Netflix called Love in the Spectrum, about autistic people finding love. Fantastic. It's wow. I am so invested.
I saw the ads for it.
I mean, it's a reality program. And they're not, they're not showing them off. It's not, they're not showing off to be funny or to be laughed at or anything like that. But it's so entertaining, and you get so invested in these autistic people looking for love. And, it's like a continuation as you follow them through their journey. Brilliant. I have to say, simple brilliant. It's like, and they end it like basically it's this one, autistic guy named Michael, and he's looking for love. And then he meets this girl at a speed dating system, and then basically he asks her out for a date, and then he shows up, and then he's at the restaurant waiting for her to come, and then that's the end of the episode. So you have to watch the next one to find out that she shows up. And you're sitting there going, but I mean, you sit there and you spend your whole time watching the whole series with a great big smile on your face when it works out, and you feel a bit sad when it doesn't work out. And it's really well done.
Yeah.
And it's not, it's not done like a circus freak show either. Like so many other shows tend to do that.
Poking fun at.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you're really enjoying their journey. And outside of that, I'm booking my trip to Russia next year to do some stuff for the show and to meet apparently our Russian fan base as well that's going on over there.
Wow, that's
crazy.
Yes,
wow.
For April, time, so I'm just finalizing that. But yeah, I mean, all I do is pay for my airfare, and I guess the hotel and everything's going to be paid for. So yay.
And then you should take us all on a trip around the world too, so we can visit all the fan base.
Most of it's in the Philippines, but Malaysia.
Really, we have to just give us free machetes.
Hey, hello, all our fans in the Philippines and Malaysia. We love you dearly. So besides that, not a lot going on. Carrying on with work and carrying on with this. Left 4 Dead is the #1 computer game internationally for the last
Congratulations! It's wonderful.
So that's going very well as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to the bloopers, and we'll be right back to talk about Dark Shadows.
Hi everyone, Tom Diamond here, covering episodes 681 to 721 in our Dark Shadows retrospective on Literary License Podcast. And let's get to the very important details right away in terms of the stars. And the first one that we see for just a couple of episodes is none other than Abe Vigoda as Ezra Braithwaite in episodes 684 and 685, a 2-episode stint. And of course, that character is killed off by Quentin. And Ezra Braithwaite is the jeweler who has designed the pentagram, and we'll find out what that's all about. And Abe Vigoda, of course, went on to become Barney Fish in Barney Miller, the famous ABC series in 1975, which ran for a few years, and then Fish, the spin-off in 1977. And I believe that Fish's wife was also played by the Dark Shadows character who did the Florence Stanley. So actually Fish is composed of 2 Dark Shadows alumni, which is interesting. Abe Vigoda was born in Brooklyn and was really an unknown character actor at the time he did Dark Shadows. He later went on to become successful in The Godfather in 1972, playing Tessio. And he was also in A Brooklyn State of Mind in 1986, Crime Spree in 2003. Abe Vigoda died January 26, 2016. He was 95 years old at the time. Abe Vigoda was on Rockford Files, Chief Detective. He was also in Godfather Part 2, Jury Duty, Family Guy. And Batman Mask of the Phantasm in 1993. And the interesting Abe Vigoda has a couple of scenes, one with Jonathan Prid and the other one with Dave Selby. And one of the bloopers is when he is first mentioned in the credits, Abe Vigoda's name is spelled Abe Vigodo. They took care of that with the second time. Okay, next we have Roger Davis, who returns as Ned Stewart, the brother of Sabrina Stewart, which we will get to in a minute. Roger Davis returns to Dark Shadows in episode 687. And then subsequently in 1897, Roger Davis appears as Dirk Wilkins, the overseer of Collinwood. Okay, Lisa Richards comes on as Sabrina Stewart in episode 692. Lisa Richards is still with us. She is alive and well. She is actually Lisa Blake Richards, and after Dark Shadows went on to star in The Last Case of August T. Harrison in 2015 and Mr. Monk in 1983. She was married a few times to Stephen Mendel, Michael Ebert, and Frederick Kimball, and R.A. Liptone. So I think she was married 4 times, actually. Okay, she has been also I caught her in an episode of Fantasy Island, actually, once. But she's been in The Heart of Dixie, Highway to Heaven, Chips. She was in the movie Heaven Can Wait, David, Seasons of the Heart, Frank and Ava, Getting On, and she was in Falcon Crest. Sorry about that, everybody. It's a little late at night. Oh, Isabella Hoops. And who can forget the portrayal of Isabella Hoops as old Edith Collins in episodes 701, 702, and as Edith's ghost in episode 710, where we finally get to see Isabella Hoops, who is 76 years old at the time she did this role, walking around. She had a nice hunchback or a kyphosis, and she's threatening Quentin, who is like twice her size. Isabella Hoops was born in 1893, April 21st, 1893 to be exact, and she was also in The Taking of Pelham 123. That movie in 1974. She was in the 1968 Boston Strangler. She died in 1987, actually, August 7th, 1987, in Far Rockaway, New York. which is quite interesting. Marie Wallace, who we remember as Eve, now returns as Jenny Collins in episode 716. Jenny Collins is the wife of Quentin, and there's another little relationship to a character in the show, which we will find out. In one of the episodes, there is Angelique shows Barnabas a vision by opening the window in the tower room of a figure that stakes Barnabas the last night that he's alive in 1897, and that is portrayed by Norman Parker. Norman Parker was a character actor that turned up from time to time. He was in Prince of the City in 1981. He actually was in Bonfire of the Vanities in 1990, and he was in Family Ties as well, and in the movie Clairvoyant in 1982. Of course, we can see Alex Stevens as the werewolf, and that started in episode 697 and 698, and a few episodes after that. Casey Townsend is the doxy that gets bitten by Barnabas in 703, and she portrays the character of Sophie Baker. And finally, Natalie Norwick, who we have seen in the past as Josette's stand-in, appears from 708 to 710 as Edith Collins' dead body. Now, one of the things that you should realize that there's an oblique reference to a crew member of Dark Shadows in episode 681, and that is not really a character, but Mr. Juggins, the mannequin that is dressed up by David with Quentin's dress in order to fool Maggie and Liz into believing that Quentin was really a figment of David's imagination, and he was just playing around. And of course, you're going to see in the first time we see Mr. Juggins, he's dressed in Quentin's blue frock coat, and that all of a sudden changes to a gray frock coat later on. But Mr. Juggins was actually named after Max Juggerhands, who was one of the mic grips on Dark Shadows, and so they gave Max Juggerhands a little round of applause, and that's an inside joke in naming the mannequin Mr. Juggins after him. We got moving on to the bloopers, but even before we do that, let's go over the characters as we go into 1897 in this block. And of course, we've got Quentin Collins, and is played by David Selby. We've got Beth, as played by Terry Crawford, or Terrain Crawford. Okay, so Louis Edmonds plays Edward Collins, the supposed patriarch of Collinwood, but he really isn't, because after Edith dies, the will leaves everything to Judith Collins, and Judith Collins, who is the sister of Edward Collins. So right away, you've still got that brother-sister relationship, just like Raj and Liz. And Joan Bennett plays Judith Collins. John Carlin, for the first time in another real role, other than Willie, comes on as Carl Collins, the practical joker of the family, and a very immature brother to Quentin. And we mustn't forget Humbert Allen Estredo. How can we forget him? Who comes back as Evan Hanley, the lawyer to the Collins family, and also a practicing devil worshiper, shades of Nicholas Blair. And Humbert Allen Estredo comes back during this block as well. Thayer David is Xandor the gypsy who finds Barnabas in his coffin, and Grayson Hall is Magda Rakosi, and I guess it's Xandor Rakosi as well, and she portrays she gives a great portrayal as a gypsy, and that's the ghost that in 100 years later is terrorizing Collinwood at first. And this was actually one of Grayson Hall's favorite roles. Her grandmother was Romanian, Russian, Eastern European, and so there is some gypsy in Grayson Hall's background, and she used to say that she really enjoyed playing this role. Moving on to one of the few bloopers in this block, and I do have to preface this by saying there aren't a lot of bloopers, especially after they get into 1897. They really seem to have cleared this up. I also do want to mention that this block marks the return of Violet Wells, one of the writers of the first year of Dark Shadows, who was called back to do some additional duty writing for the 1897 block. Henry Kaplan is prominently featured as a director in 1897 as well. In episode 682, Maggie has a dream, and she walks to the West Wing, interestingly enough, in the opposite direction from the way where she usually walks. She will usually walk out of her room and to a door through the end of the corridor and open that door in order to enter into the West Wing. In the dream, she goes in the opposite direction and walks off the set. One of the only David Selby bloopers that we see in this block was when he pronounces the name of, he's talking about the cousins of Collinwood, and then he pronounces Barnabas Collins' name as Barnabas Cousins before he realizes his mistake and then repeats the name Barnabas Collins. In another episode, it's kind of interesting, and I don't know if a lot of fans pick this up, but so David Selby as Quentin starts to walk up the Collinwood staircase in the foyer in order to get to his room, and the camera shows him walking up the staircase and then stopping in the middle of the staircase, and then it switches to the other characters in that particular scene. You never really see David Selby walking across that balcony kind of landing in order to hit that door. And my guess is that David Selby had to walk to another part of the set, and the camera was not supposed to show him stopping. But it did. He stopped just for a second, and we can see that happening. Also, in a few of the scenes, you will see them waiting for their cues until they start emoting. So watch for those. In episode 683, Julia coughs while she's holding up the pentagram pendant. In episode 686, Julia states that Ezra Braithwaite, after he had died, had a condition of heart trouble, and that was a writer's blooper. It really should have been that he had a history of heart trouble. We have some Fritz speak in 786, where Jonathan says Braithwaite knew who he had sold that book to, and it should have been the pentagram. Look, by the way, for the lights that simulate lightning in the windows of the day room at Collinwood, and that's also in 686, one or two other episodes as well. Jonathan, I believe, comes up with another blooper in episode 688 when he talks about, when he mentions Chris, then he says David's strange behavior lately. In episode 689, watch out for Don Briscoe. And of course, Don Briscoe as Chris Jennings, and this is before they go back to 1897. And Barnabas, Julia, and Chris are getting out of the mausoleum. Chris trips on the steps, and I think that he manages to recover. In episode 691, look for one of the crewman figures running by the screen as we have a scene with Maggie. Episode 694, well, we're not going to go into too many of these, but we do have that mic boom in the upper right-hand corner in one of the scenes. But you don't have that too often here. As I said, you don't really have a lot of bloopers in this block at all. They did a really good job. Let's not forget, by the way, that Catherine Lee Scott in 1897 portrays Rachel Drummond, the governess, kind of like a la Vickie and a la Maggie, who handles the children, Jameson, played by David Hennessy, and Nora Collins, played by Denise Nickerson. And those are two other characters in the block. All the actors are really, or most of the actors are taking on new character roles here. And one of the things about the name Rachel Drummond is that it also happens to be the name of a character in Inherit the Wind, and I go into that in the podcast. And that was the picture in 1960-ish with Spencer Tracy, Frederick March, Dick York, as it was a Stokes trial, essentially, the biology high school teacher in the South who taught evolution, and the town got very upset about it. And of course, Gene Kelly, in a rare, serious appearance, having nothing to do with his dancing abilities. But anyway, for some strange reason, the character of Rachel Drummond, who was portrayed by, and I'm blanking out on the actress in that movie, the name is used for the Dark Shadows character here. By the way, and I apologize for skipping back and forth, but I realized that we talked about Casey Townsend, who had played Sophie Baker in a one-shot blooper and then a one-shot scene as Barnabas' victim. She was born as Kathleen Faye Sullivan, April 4th, 1942, and she was in The Burning in 1987, All That Jazz in 1979, and Casey Townsend passed away on April 6th, 1989. She was also in she was also in a picture called Age of Insects. Okay. Now, skipping to episode 707, and that's how it goes to show you that there aren't a lot of bloopers in this block. We just skipped 10 episodes later. Actually, Amazon Prime says that there is a blooper in that the tower room, which of course is lit from time to time. The Jenny's in there, and it's supposed to be dark. That when people look out the front door, they can see the tower, and you're not really supposed to be able to see the tower unless it's from the rear of the house. And in actuality, in that episode, you don't see the tower from the front door. You see the tower from the garden, which which is in the back of the drawing room, and that garden actually is in the rear of the house. So that's not a blooper. It was seems to be a mistake on Amazon Prime's part. The line that's given by Roger as the family is being thrown out of Collinwood when Quentin takes over, and Roger looks defiantly at the walls and says, "We'll be back. Have no fear of that." Nice to hear Roger rhyme there. Moving back to episode 707, Edward says a really cardinal line. Nobody in the family trusts anyone else. And that goes back to what I probably said earlier, that one of the big issues of Dark Shadows is the lack of trust that everybody in the family has for each other. Well, here it is verbalized by Edward. For those of you who are seeing the closed caption in Amazon Prime, look for a couple of closed caption bloopers as well. Closed caption spells Trist as Trift, because Louis Edmonds kind of he didn't pronounce it wrong, but he did a little speeding up when he was giving that line. Look in episode 718. Look for a different stage setting, where in the prior episode, Barnabas is standing in the tower room. The door opens, and Barnabas just looks in horror at what he sees. In the next episode, Barnabas, the door opens and then closes, and then Barnabas calls for Angelique and gives a nice little soliloquy. All that is not in the prior episode. And of course, how can we forget, Lara Parker does return as Angelique in this block to torment Barnabas even further. In episode 721, finally a can falls on the floor in the middle of the scene, and you can clearly hear the clatter of the can as it falls on the floor in the set. And so that is a decent summary of the bloopers, and we've also talked about the stars in episodes 681 to 721. And I hope you've enjoyed that. And now let's get back to the show.
Hello, welcome back to Live Your License Podcast, and we're discussing Dark Shadows, February to March 1969, and episode 681 to 721. And as you know, if you were with us last month, we've now done a different format. So what we're going to do is be covering storylines to be able to make sure that we cover things more adequately and to make sure that we're a bit more focused as we carry on through our storylines. So our first storyline is scene 1. Maggie tells Elizabeth about seeing Quentin, and Elizabeth goes to the West Wing to investigate. Barnabas calls on Professor Stokes to propose a seance to reach Janet Findlay. Barnabas contacts elderly jewelers, Ezra Bathwaite, to learn about the pentagram found in the coffin. Quentin's ghost appears to Ezra, who realizes he's the same Quentin he knew as a young man. Roger returns from a trip and learns that Barnabas has accused David of stealing Ezra's record book. Quentin appears to David and causes him to feel that he is set on fire. Quentin attacks Maggie and Elizabeth, and Mrs. Johnson hear Quentin's theme playing on a loop. Elizabeth and Julia believe that the children are possessed by a pair of ghosts. So, Tom, what are your thoughts of this storyline?
I could tell you is that all this and what we're going to be discussing pre-1897 when they go back to it is just is kind of fodder. And some of this is like, to me, is stuffing a pillow with straw until we get to 1897. And then things really, really start to get nice. But as far as this was concerned, I think the main advantage of this block is, of course, we see Abe Vigoda, who was later, of course, on Barney Miller.
That was him. That was driving me nuts.
That's exactly right. Barney Miller, and then later as Fish in the series Takeoff of Barney Miller. And Abe Vigoda actually did come to a couple of Dark Shadows conventions. I wasn't at, but I had heard about it. And it was kind of it because he was only on for two or three episodes.
Maybe two,
three, maybe two or three.
Pops, yeah.
And in the first, I think it was
episodes afterwards.
Was that?
And his character was discussed for 5 episodes after that. Of course. But of course, the blooper is that in the credits. In the first episode, he is listed as Abe Vigoda with an O instead of an A, and they corrected that one after. But but he was really you could really see that he was a damn good actor, and he had this long scene with Selby. And it enabled. That was really one of the first time when you see Selby as Quentin, who up to this point was just malevolent ghost and killing and maiming and didn't care who he possessed. But as Abe Vigoda, as Braithwaite talks about the pentagram and talks about the origins of the pentagram and reads the quote from the head of Cerberus, and you can see Selby looking into the camera, and for the first time, you see sadness in the eyes, and as he's remembering what we will be seeing as it's what actually happened to Quentin. And I think also, so I think also during this, David's being set on fire. Now the hand, Quentin touches David's hand. The camera didn't pick this up, but there was actually they really did a good makeup job of what looked like a 2nd-degree burn on David's forearm. And but you have to look at it closely, and you have to have a big TV screen because otherwise you really don't see that too well. But it did give it. But if you're really looking at that closely, as I said, it gives you it gives you an idea of the cruelty that they wanted everybody to know that Quentin was capable of, and the seance, of course, which. Thayer David does with his usual Ilana panache, and Mrs. Johnson is possessed by the spirit of Janet Findlay. Did a really good scene where she finally faints and faints on the table at the end, and the music cue is right on, and of course Roger, who is as usual. There's some more scenes with Roger in this block. And but I think that this is all the setup
or part of this setup to what we're really going to see when we go back to 1897. And if you can, and some of it's slow, very, very slow. Compared to what's going to happen later on. So if you can sit through that, and go through episodes where David and Amy are having hysterics. We can't listen to Quentin. We can't, but we can, but we must, but we can't, but we must. And David and Amy are just going back and forth.
Let's play the game. Let's play the game.
Let's play the game.
Oh,
let's play the game.
I want to play the game.
We can't play the game, David.
We gotta play the game. But
I guess I like this music after all. It's like, oh my God. You
just get sick of that. You get sick of that.
Yeah, because you think they made a decision, and then all of a sudden they switch back to the house, and they've made a completely different decision than the one you just seen in the previous scene with no explanation. It's not like they just ran into Quentin, at least on screen, and you're like, wait, how did they come to that conclusion again? Did I miss something? And they just keep going back and forth. But I will say Denise Nickerson does an amazing job of being a creepy little girl kid. It reminds me of one of those T-shirts by Stephen Rhodes that has "Let's summon demons," or I don't know if you've seen those, but they have them at Hot Topic and places like that.
I love those shirts. I got a few of them.
I don't have one yet, but I want one. It's my goal to get one of those.
They get lots of side eye if you're out and about, especially living down here in the.
Oh yeah, no. when I wear clothes like that, I always get looks and comments. So I could definitely see that. But I would love to see a version of that for Dark Shadows or something, because that would be especially relevant right now. But I also realized that it's so turn of the screw, even more so than the original.
I think they did that on purpose, turn of the screw.
Oh yeah, but if you think about the first season ever, that was also turn of the screw. But this is almost like a direct copy, almost with a few variants here and there with different characters. But even Quentin's name is in turn of the screw, or is it Quentin or is it Quent? It's something so similar, if not the same exact name.
Yeah. Oh, that's possible. Yeah, that's possible. Sure. Well, do you know that, and of course, this is probably the next, but Rachel Drummond and Catherine Leigh Scott's character, and I guess we're going to talk about that in a minute. Rachel Drummond is the name of the character from Inherit the Wind. I don't know if you remember that movie with Spencer Tracy and Frederick March and Dick York and of all people, Gene Kelly, who portrayed a great. But anyway, Rachel Drummond is the name of the minister's daughter, and I don't know I don't know whether that was coincidence or not. But it's a kind of a similar character, because Rachel is the Rachel Drummond in Inherit the Wind is very conservative, and she of course though she has different dynamics with Dick York's biology teacher that wants to teach about evolution as opposed to the Bible, but I just thought that was weird. Yeah,
I think the problem with adapting Turn of the Screw in Dark Shadows times is that Turn of the Screw is basically about the sexual awakening of the nanny through her sexual attraction to the child, acting as this. And so what you have is you got kind of like a bastardized version of it. So it doesn't really quite work to a certain extent. Okay, the idea of the kids being possessed kind of works, but then when you bring Maggie in, it's like, well, you can't really have David coming on to Maggie in a sexual fashion or anything
Maggie,
like this.
For God's sake,
and all the repressed Victorian, because Turn of the Screw is about Victorian sexual repression. That's what the whole thing's about. And so it's kind of weird that that when they're trying to do this, that's why some of it kind of works and some of it's very uneven the way it works, especially when you get Maggie, Maggie going, who are you talking to?
Well, you see more of that.
And you got a little bit of Victoria coming into there as well, because Victoria tries to leave in the beginning of this storyline, so it's kind of going on at the same time.
Well, you see more of that. Once they go back to 1897, then you really do see the sexual repression in full force. And I think on various levels. And so I think it's because it is Victorian, and Victorian society was what it was all about.
Well, everybody was doing it. You just weren't talking about it, is what was going on.
It was done in closed doors.
I think another thing that you have with the problem with this, the turn of the screw as well, is that in Turn of the Screw, basically when the nanny comes into it, she knows about, everyone in the household knows about what happened with the governess and the groundskeeper.
Right.
And it's like this big secret. Here we got Quentin, and no one knows anything about Quentin or knows anything about that.
And you know what's annoying about like this? What's annoying is that it's like when storylines like this come up, everyone within the Dark Shadows family that lives in that house, knowing full well since season 1, episode 1, that there's ghosts in the house. Wait, there's ghosts?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. How did you know that, David? It's like I heard Elizabeth and David having this conversation, and I'm like, wait, what? And that's why I feel like I'm constantly watching like a soft reboot of the show, because it is kind of like they're redoing the pilot, but with like different elements. And rather than David just randomly turning into a good person, the reason why he's a naughty child that like plays pranks on his governess is because he's possessed by a demon. In fact, a spirit.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jesse. And in fact, there is an interesting scene where they have Hennessy doing a soliloquy, and it's in episode 688, if anybody is keeping up. And he sounds to me like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. The way he's, please, there's no place like home, that kind of thing. I mean, all you're wondering is whether he has ruby slippers that he can tap 3 times. And I think, and Hennessy just does that once in this entire block. And then, of course, you have the blooper right there of a music blooper, which the music ended too soon, and then there's just dead air. Shame on them. But I think that one of the things that I have to point out, and especially with this whole block, very few bloopers, and especially when we get to 1897, and I'll shut my mouth because we got plenty to talk about there. But if you really look, I mean, the attention to getting rid of this, it was really like, now, of course, Leela Swift was running after this. They brought back Violet Wells from the first year, who was a writer in the first year, and they brought her back to do some of the writing on this. And I think that was probably one of the reasons. But Hall, Russell, Leela Swift in terms of the director, and especially Henry Kaplan, who now comes to the fore as you're going to start to see him direct some stuff in scene 1, and he gets more. But he was, and I'll repeat, that he was one of David Selby's favorite directors, because Kaplan was apparently able to do some things that none of the other directors, and yes, Leela Swift was a specialist when it comes to special effects and so forth. But Henry Kaplan had a new take on this that we didn't see before, and it starts to happen in scene 1.
I do kind of wonder, though. I don't think any of the people in that house have ever read the Collins family history book.
No,
really not.
They don't even know any of these people who make pop up. It's like,
well, what an interesting point there, because what does the Collins family history book say about what happened to Quentin? That he went to Paris and that was it? Nobody ever heard of him?
Yeah, well, I mean, the same kind of storyline with Barnabas.
Barnabas, he went to England, so. Yeah.
But you just think that, even Barnabas, like being so enthralled with the family history or whatever, you think that he would have wanted to read that book that was.
Yeah, you think he would be the one person, but Vickie, who's now gone, seemed to be the only person who was really fascinated with the family history. So maybe she would have been the person to consult at that time, but
the book,
no one else
seems to know. It came back from the past, so now it's back in the present. So
right,
yeah. So maybe it's changed. Maybe changes were erased. I don't know.
And then you got Julia going down to the lofty, the damp basement looking for an old photo album. It was like, who leaves their photo albums in a damp basement?
Yeah, exactly.
And she winds up finding Beth's photograph. Which is old sepia, poor, what's her name? Terry Crawford, and and I think, and we have Terry Crawford in this. Do we have it in scene 1, or is that more in scene 2? I think it's more in scene 2, so I'll stop.
I mean, I do have to sit there and say that from a realistic point of view, if that's the way that the Stoddards and the Collins people have keep their filing, I mean, God forbid the tax man shows up and wants to look at their taxes. It's like, oh, they're just down there in the drafty map.
Well, that's what they got lawyers for. That's what
our filings. Just go down there.
That's what they got Richard Garner for, so he can hide the books. Or cook the books is, that's more like it. Cook the books with the fire.
I also noticed that if you pay attention to, I think it was the character of Edith, the older lady, if you listen to a lot of, people from this period, they seem to have a greater understanding of their history than the modern rendition of the Collins family, which is kind of frustrating because they do a lot of talk about, I know this about our family. Like, I'm so well educated on my history and my family, but then when it comes to moments like this, they almost know nothing, and you need the help of some like an outsider, even though Barnabas should know something because he lived through
Quentin's storyline. We're only talking about Joan Bennett's grandmother.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean,
not very far removed.
They're not that very far removed. It's like knowing about your great grandparents or your grandparents, really. So I could understand, in the 1795, they may not know so much about that, but I just think that maybe Joan would be, or Elizabeth. Sorry, Joan Bennett. You would think that Elizabeth would be a bit more keyed on about her grandparents or her mom's mom.
No, you think so?
Well, both of them really, Elizabeth and Roger. Now, what was it? Edward was it Jameson? Was Jameson the father of Roger and Elizabeth? Is that what that was?
I think it's Jameson.
And so then Edward.
So you just think that maybe they would have been a little bit more queued up because Jameson and Quentin.
Edward's the grandfather.
In 1897, but at this point in time, if you think about 1960, and let's say Elizabeth's 50 maybe. So that brings you back to 1910 that she was born.
Yeah, roughly. There's a lot of that.
And then and Quentin's in 1897, so that's not that far removed.
Well, there's another little movement because they were talking about a letter that was received in 1887 when Quentin wrote to Jameson. Now, if Jameson was around 10 or 11 years old in 1897, he'd probably be 1 or 2 years old in 1887. So I'd like to know how precocious he was that he could read the letter. Quentin got to him. I just thought things
Jameson
like that.
Jameson was the Doogie Howser of 1897.
Right.
Oh God!
I mean, I quite like. I like. It's kind of funny because you're kind of watching these episodes and it's like, okay, get on with it and stuff like this. And it does. It kind of drags here and there, but when we get to some of the other scenes that we're going to be discussing, it does. You do get a payoff because of these, though. I have to say that was quite nice that we didn't get. We didn't get a bunch of drop-offs where it's just like people just storylines just disappear for no apparent reason. It's like, where did that go? So so we do get a little bit of we get some bridging going on, which is quite nice.
I think that's important. I think there's cohesiveness through this here.
I agree. I feel like there's a lot of attention to detail too, like even with the exorcism of the house, and even if it's not super accurate information, it's still very unique and it works for the story that they're telling. And I even though these become redundant, I feel like if you watch these consecutively without taking a break, it's much easier to get through and it's actually much more interesting. Because I remember the first time I watched this, I would watch these before bed, I'd fall asleep, and I'd start from the same episodes. I feel like I was in some kind of weird cycle of hell where I was just seeing the same thing. Like, oh my God, when is this going to end? But when you watch it consecutively, maybe at a better time during the day or in the evening, it's so much easier to get through. And I was doing them while doing some charcoal for school, and I was able to watch them then, and I thought it was much better to do that way because otherwise they can be redundant otherwise. But there's so much information too. Like if you miss something, I think that can also lead to a lot of confusion too, because there are missing gaps, I think, in the story in a way, but mostly I think they do a very good job of doing this.
I mean, I have to agree with you. I kind of watch the series same way that you do. On Saturdays is my editing day, so I get up in the morning, make my cup of tea, get my computer out, put in Dark Shadows, and watch 3 hours of it while I'm doing my editing. And watching it flow, it works out really, really well. I do find that if I just watch it without doing something else, I tend to fall asleep a little bit sometimes because there is there is repetition, but it is a daytime soap and you have to have repetition because you have to remember the time of day it's on. And you got to remember that housewives weren't always available, at a certain time. Sometimes they had to do. So if they had to miss a day or two for whatever reason, you had to make sure they were able to get back into the episode because they're not. You can't wait for summer reruns.
But again, they're trying to figure out. They're trying to figure out the plot, and there's a very early thing where, and I don't know whether it was Magda's spirit when she was running around, trying to warn everybody. But there was somewhere along the line there was this storyline that yes, a curse was inflicted on Quentin, and we're going to find out later what that curse was. But that Quentin died because a hunter was going after him and shot him, and that is totally not what happened. So maybe history
really
was changed.
Change that, don't they?
Maybe history that was one of the. But they were just trying to figure out how the hell are we going to explain Quentin's being such an evil ghost. But it was completely changed, and then they never. They never. Of course, the other prevailing belief was that it was Quentin's body that was skeletonized that they found in Quentin's room. Now it turns out that that's not Quentin, and we're gonna find out who that was. But the two alternate plot lines were going on. People were figuring, well, that's Quentin in the room. But then there's another thing going on that Quentin was killed by a hunter. And I'm like, what the heck is that about? And that was
But the other thing you have to remember, though, that at this point, there is no Barnabas in the storyline, in that 1897 storyline, so he could have changed.
In the original, that's correct, because he was sleeping. He was.
So maybe this is what happened, but then when we get to 1897, all of a sudden Barnabas is now in the picture, coming back, and now we have that's going to change everything. It's like 1795, what we got with that. And that pretty much changed the whole storyline of what apparently did happen.
And as Angelique,
Barnabas plays the role of Victoria in this one. But I hate the fake fur on his cape. It looks like freaking cheap carpet. It looks like cheap carpet. If it was real fur, it would look awesome. If it was real fur, it would look great. But this is like cheap carpet. That's the only reason why I don't like it.
I don't know. It doesn't look totally like faux fur.
We also have Barnabas playing a father figure, taking Roger's place, and what kind of father he was.
Oh yeah. You know what else is funny?
Because Roger's never around when there's something of responsibility.
Well, he's gone to London to see the Queen. Remember, he's gone to London to see the Queen.
So. Don't you think?
But that's got a nice little role. Got a nice little role thing, and then we also have Barnabas and Julia working in tandem, which brings us to scene number 2, which is the ghost of Beth appears to Chris and shows him a place in the woods where a child's coffin is located. Chris begins to feel he is changing, and Barnabas rushes into the mausoleum. Ned Stewart shows up and tells Barnabas about his sister Sabrina.
Oh, God.
Who's a vegetable.
Good old Lisa Richards. Good old Lisa Richards who plays Sabrina.
Sabrina sees Barnabas' wolf's head, Cain, and begins to remember the events of 2 years earlier. Barnabas and Julia go to the secret room to find that Chris is a werewolf in no full moon, and Julia decides there's a connection between Chris and Quentin.
The only other person I've ever heard say vegetable was like Victor from Young and the Restless, and I only ever watched that episode.
She was young, she was beautiful, and now she's a vegetable.
Vegetable.
I have to admit, when Roger Davis character coming back in as Ned. Now, I don't know why they brought Roger Davis back in as Ned. It was kind of
he's Ned, and then he comes back as somebody.
Derek Wilkins. That's later.
Yeah,
but you know what was annoying about that? They acknowledged it.
It was kind of disarming to see him back, sort of thing, because it was kind of weird.
That quick.
I think because this storyline doesn't really go that far, really, at this moment in time. I think they probably could have got a day player to come in a little bit, maybe. Because seeing Roger Davis, I'm not saying that Roger Davis is bad whatsoever, nothing about that. But it's kind of like...
character, though. He's kind of weird.
Again, it's the writers.
All the characters acknowledge him and say, "Oh my God, you look like this one guy that just left the show." And it's like, you don't need to acknowledge it. You're making it more awkward by making light of it.
Well, they wanted to establish a connection with the fans. I was just talking with Roger yesterday about, and Ned Stewart was not a favorite character of his. He liked the Dirk Wilkins character a lot better in terms of what eventually happens to Dirk, which is, again, another thing we're going to talk about later. But, again, the Ned Stewart was really a heavy, who was Sabrina's brother, and he is very protective of Sabrina because she is indeed a vegetable now.
That protective of her. He could have found that woman a comb, okay? Somebody brush that girl's hair. You could be crazy and still have hygiene.
And toilet training too. Toilet stuff, too, for her. Can you well imagine? Yeah, he's her private duty nurse. Now, if he were a nurse, if it was established that he were a male nurse,
he's always touching her. It gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah, there was something incestuous about this relationship between the brother and sister. It was very odd. I don't know if that's what was meant to show off.
No, I
don't think they meant it that way. With people with minds such as ours.
If this was Ryan Murphy, he would fully take advantage of this and go a step further with it. We already know this.
But I think that in this scene, when we talk of Don Briscoe's Chris, we really, and of course, the only problem I think with Briscoe is the overacting as he's changing into a werewolf, and and he's going through a prolonged seizure episode that lasts 5 to 10 minutes.
Preparation H, whichever happens. Because seriously,
that's good.
Seriously, though, it's like nothing succeeds like excess,
And he turns into a giant Preparation H bottle instead of it's the giant Preparation H tube instead of a werewolf. But
huge continuity problems with the werewolf anyway. I mean, to be honest, it's like he's out there, he's running around. People see him. No one understands why they're seeing. It's a dog with clothes on. Okay,
but when he transforms back, he's fully dressed. A wrinkle. His clothes
there's a scene in the mausoleum. Oh my God, there's a scene in the mausoleum. I mean, when Barnabas finds him, he's still dressed in his spotless sport jacket and pants and shirt, and there's no, at least before you had the ripped shirts. Which
even Lon Chaney had ripped pants and shirts.
Sure he did. Sure he did. And at least Lon Chaney took off his shoes before he turned into a werewolf. But here, and that was ridiculous. where they find him, where Barnabas finds him in the mausoleum, and he looks like he's just gotten back from dinner, at a fancy restaurant. I mean,
you want to even go up more one. I don't even know if it'd be accepted in this day, but if they are David and Magda come out with black or brown face, they probably get, eviscerated in today's society.
Oh yeah.
You got to say something about it. Go ahead.
I also thought it was
I love it though. It's funny.
I have to say that, I mean, even the last block when Elizabeth goes, I saw a dog that was going to attack me, and it's like the dog wearing clothes. What kind of dog wearing clothes? Are you being attacked by Paris Hilton's dog?
Yeah.
But these days, they do put clothes on dogs, so it could work. Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Back then, it was a little too soon.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe. But I did enjoy the, the husband and wife kind of energy I was getting from Barnabas and Julie, because it felt like
I love those two in this block. The way they're bouncing off each other.
They feel like a married couple finally. It's like this is like their domestic routine now. Yeah. And it's very interesting. And they're just kind of taking care of Chris, who's like their adopted child. But I also have a hard time, like, because of what else is going on with like David and Amy and Quentin, like going back from that and then going to Chris Jennings' storyline is kind of like hard for me. I don't have as much interest in Chris Jennings' story. Maybe he's too bland for me. I don't know. I love his
storyline. I just wish that they would be more accepting of the supernatural, because they are surrounded by the supernatural. But yet they're going, werewolves can't exist. We got vampires and witches everywhere.
Weird. It's weird because Barnabas is beginning to feel like more of a skeptic than he was, because I mean he was a freaking vampire. So it's like, why are you still?
How can you be a skeptic when he's been the undead? Yeah, I know.
I know. It's weird. Like they're always so bewildered. Like, oh my god, this isn't possible. It's supernatural. It's like, but you've been involved in so many supernatural accounts since you debuted. So like, what are you talking about? There's no awareness.
Yeah, I think the problem lies. I think the problem lies with the balancing here, because what you have is Barnabas dealing with Quentin and David and Amy and that whole thing. Meanwhile, dealing with the werewolf at the same time. And you're thinking they might have been they should have been a bit more clever about interlocking a story. So basically, if you're going to have someone else dealing with the Chris side of it, and then someone else dealing with the Quentin side of it, because you got Barnabas running back from the cottage to the old house, to the new house.
Yeah, it feels like he's running away.
Oh, werewolf, possession, werewolf, possession. And like, okay, Barnabas, okay. It's like, and a normal man would have gone crazy by this point.
Yeah, Barnabas has definitely got to keep it all together, doesn't he? He's the only one that knows anything that's going on. Everybody else is like totally clueless.
I also remembered a quote that Barnabas told Maggie when he was looking for background information on Quentin. It's like, these family histories aren't very accurate sometimes. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure they wrote that for various reasons, because for one, they weren't accurate with Barnabas, so it felt like a kind of joke reference to that, but also it kind of gave the writers an excuse to be inconsistent. So I felt like that was kind of like open invitation to, oh yeah, so we can mix and meddle whatever we feel like here and just kind of tailor it for whatever we need for that day.
Right.
Because I feel like they do that a lot, I mean, I guess it works. I guess it's kind of clever, but I feel like a lot of shows have done that, and I've seen that so many different times that it's kind of redundant. But you
got to remember though, this was 50 years ago, and they were probably the first to do this, because I remember other soap operas had tried. I mean, you had was it The Guiding Light with Quentin McCord? Did they try to do that with him, the archaeologist? And then you had Port Charles, who were trying to incorporate vampires and stuff, but they couldn't ever spin it. I mean, you just could not replicate it.
It was never as good as Shadow.
No. And Port Charles had a spinoff for a while. It was about vampires. And it's just like, I've been watching General Hospital for 50 years. And it's like, come on, guys. This is a real stretch for General Hospitals.
No, I mean, I know I'm looking at this with a critical eye, but this is one of my favorite storylines, and it is one of my favorite shows.
This is the best so far. I mean, I actually could not stop watching this. That's why I was jumping ahead.
I know, I didn't want to stop watching so it either, but I had... But yeah, it went on a brief dry spell, and there are some dry episodes, but
there's a few.
It's mostly consistent, and they did kind of breathe life back into it, especially after Victoria left. I feel like it was kind of hard to usher back in a kind of new spirit, which I feel like they did, and I am kind of disappointed.
It was funny when they opened the door. They opened the door, and he said Chris Jennings is still a werewolf because he's not supposed to be a werewolf,
right.
And he's just looking like so it's like they opened the bathroom door or something, He just turns around and looks at him. Then they shut the door. It's like, what was that?
I think the problem with the two storylines that we got here is that normally what you do is you have what you normally found with Dark Shadows or any other show, whatever it is, you normally have a major storyline, and then you have a lesser major storyline going on. So that way you got the other characters had something to do. Here you got two major storylines going on simultaneously. So it's kind of like, and it's that before, when the two actors, Julie and Barnabas, dealing with both major storylines, are kind of like, So I think that's probably why it always kind of, because the werewolf storyline is a great storyline.
Yeah.
And the Quentin storyline that we're getting with that's a good storyline as well, but they're very uneven because the thing is you're bouncing back and forth to these huge storylines which are running simultaneously.
Yeah, and they're not interlocking very well. They're supposed to interlock because Chris is a werewolf and Quentin was at one point, but how did they interlock right now? It's really not evident.
And you're not quite sure why Quentin's after, we're still not sure what the Quentin and Chris Jennings story of the beat.
I think that's okay though. I think that's okay though because they want to the writers want to establish a potential relationship. We don't know what that relationship is, and why are the two of them with different names, and why are the two of them both
70 years apart from each other?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's okay, because we're going to find out a lot later what that relationship is, and it's kind of obvious, probably for people, even for the newbies who are looking at that, but you don't want to give away the secret among all the other secrets. You don't want to give away the secret yet. So so that part, I think is good.
Intrigued, I have to admit, yeah.
But I will say that it is interesting, and I don't remember. I'm probably we're going to find out, but I don't remember why Chris does not change back into Chris once during daylight. I don't know why that's happening. And maybe we'll find that out later. I don't remember that, but we don't see that in this block. And that is an interesting.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and that's something you don't see in the Chaney. Lon Chaney, he always changes back with the sun. But
I was just wondering if they snuck up on Alex, by when he was sitting in the mausoleum, because he just kind of turns around and looks at him like he wasn't expecting the door to open.
Probably
That's
not.
why I was laughing.
Probably not. But and how is he going to know? Quite frankly, unless he gets the cue, and they're probably too damn busy. If you look, actually, there was one of the, and I think that Penny Dreadful, who one of the really, and of course we had her on, Danielle, got some pictures that were taken of the Dark Shadow set by one of the crew. And that was really during much later, but you see the way, everything looked in the background, and you just don't see, it's not just the cameras, you see the coffee cups everywhere, the people, they put their coffee on top of equipment and stuff like that. Yeah. And it's such a mess. And those are great rare shots that were never really seen before until maybe a couple of months ago. And so you really get the impression that, something, if Alex Stevens didn't know when this door was going to open, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, because they were too busy concentrating on other things, and they probably forgot, they didn't think he needed to know. And why other than gritting his bottom teeth, what is he supposed to do? That kind of thing. So, that was a good pickup, Vickie, and I think that may have had something to do with it. They didn't think they had to tell him about this when the door is going to be open. So he probably might have been surprised.
Now, he was just kind of sitting there, minding his own business.
We don't really get an ending to the Ned Sabrina thing. That's it, isn't it?
No, that's it.
Yeah, it's a little annoying.
Later, though, we do pick up on when they go back to the present, and this is going ahead. We're going to get into this takeoff on Werewolf of London. And, not going to go into it any further than that, but we will get more of an impression. And that's basically in terms of a possibility for Chris's cure. So we do get into that thing. But I said,
I didn't know if this is going to be one of those storylines, where just basically just, because we do go back in time during this block, which we'll be discussing, but sometimes they go back in time and then they go back to the present, like people get lost. It's like, they don't appear anymore. It's like, okay. Started and just been dropped off. So
yeah, I feel like it's hard for them to come back as the characters they were before, the crazy
characters
that they're playing back in time. Yeah, and everything's changed, and they're trying to find themselves. You always get that kind of sense that they're trying to find where they left off with the first few episodes. And what was I going to say? I'm kind of annoyed, and I really don't care about like the storyline between like the romance between Carolyn and
Chris.
Like I don't care that they fizzled out. I don't know. It's just
Well,
kind
I
of
would like to
soap-opera-y.
see some form of romance going on. Somebody making it on the
Yeah,
show.
but the way that they're doing it, it's so loose. You don't really see enough of it to care. You just see kind of you know what's going on, and then all of a sudden you realize they were more romantically involved or interested in each other than you realized because you didn't really see.
Carolyn was really involved with him, and I was surprised to see. I mean, she's in love with him, for God's sakes, and he's again. It's the one that she can't have him,
Well,
that kind of thing.
The only young guy in Collinsport.
The only good-looking guy in Collinsport.
Because every time someone comes and visits the family, they're normally like 40 plus.
No, that's true. I remember my fraternal twin brother. He came into the room once when I was watching Dark Shadows. He's like, "What is this, Twilight with old people?" And I'm like, "No, it's better."
Twilight for old people?
Yeah, because there's only like 40 plus actors in the show, and
except for David and Amy.
Yeah, true.
Well,
but before it was just David.
The girls are all in their 20s, and
you still have Maggie.
You only have two girls. You don't have any other guys in their 20s. The only guy you have in their 20s is.
But they are in a minority, though. They are.
Yeah.
In a minority.
And the ones that come on always leave. Like
did
Joe's
Dan Curtis ever
not
mention
around.
why he did that?
Frank Garner's gone.
Frank Gardner's been gone forever, though.
I know, and Ned Stewart isn't very interesting, so who cares? He's the same kind of character with a little.
What happened to him?
He went back to take care of the ships or going fishing or something. I don't know.
I don't remember myself. That's how uninteresting it is. And once again, Roger thought that character was ridiculous. And and the Dirk Wilkins, that's going to be more of a central thing. We're going to find out what goes
Adam goes for plastic surgery, never to be seen again.
Adam went into that room, and Professor Stokes.
He's living his best life. What can I say? I mean, he's probably a wealthy billionaire now.
He's still living in the
clinic.
clinic.
Watching Thayer David do that gypsy thing, though. I mean, I was like, it just cracks me right the heck up.
Magda.
Yeah.
Well, of course. That was Grayson Hall's favorite role. Also, no, that's fine. That was Grayson Hall loved Magda. She loved her better
she's
than
really
Julia.
Fun.
Because her grandmother, Grayson Hall's grandmother, was Russian, and they came out of a Russian Jewish background. So so she was really enthralled with the Zandor, my favorite fat Zandor, that kind of thing. And here's and you want me to do something for you? How much? She puts out her head, that kind of thing. And the two of them, and I'll tell you something, and that's something that isn't, but that's later. I mean, because we're talking about the present, but the Magda Zandor relationship is kind of, this, they love each other, they're a den of thieves together, but they care about each other. And, and it's comic relief, but at the same time, poor Zandor, a victim of one of Barnabas's male bites. And and so forth, but
at least we've moved to the neck. At least we're getting brave.
Oh, they get braver. No more hand, no more sheep.
So we're not homophobic anymore on Dark Shadows.
In point of fact, there are at least two men that Barnabas bites, and we're not going to say who the second one is, but definitely Zandor is the first. And when Fred bared his fangs, there was a special smile, that kind of, but no, I mean, but the point is that but they are getting a little bolder, but they know they cannot have a man biting a man and a woman biting a woman. And they just didn't want to touch that one. They didn't want to touch it. And you're going to see later on, actually, you're going to see a couple of woman-woman vampire relationships, which are not explicitly shown on Dark Shadows.
Really, the hunger was never put on this early. That came.
No, that was later.
Catherine Deneuve.
Catherine and Susan Sarandon.
Excellent movie.
Yeah, so that's much later.
Our podcast later this season.
No, that's true. Shameless plug.
Scene 3. Professor Stokes performs an exorcism on Collinswood, but Quentin sets the room on fire. Everyone abandons Collinswood to live at the old house with no modern conveniences. Quentin's evil laugh is heard throughout. David and Amy go back to Collinswood to destroy the antique phone. Maggie is dressed in a 19th century gown and can't remember her name. Maggie and Barnabas search the West Wing. David goes in a coma-like state. So, Vickie, what are your thoughts of this storyline?
Oh, the exorcism. The exorcism. I always like a good Collinwood exorcism. What would call me with a good loud exorcism? And do these guys ever get any good weather? Is it constantly raining?
Yeah.
I went to school in New England and I've been to Maine several times and I don't recall that many thunderstorms. I'm just saying right now.
Well,
Maine was kind of sunny.
It's thundering and lightning, but you never get any rain. You don't even get any wind. It's just
And then
always
Maggie,
thunder.
of course, Maggie loses her mind again. Why is it? She's so forgiving. Every time something happens to Maggie, they make her forget
Oh, I
it.
know,
Or
baby,
another
I
entity
know.
makes her lose her memories. You know, Maggie's just walking around with no memories. I mean, everything happens to Maggie. It's like the perils of Pauline with this girl, don't you
Well,
think?
they don't have Victoria now, so everything has to happen to Maggie because now she's taking on the role of both Maggie and Victoria, and so now everything happens to her. Now I can
That's
kind of
true. We
understand.
do have to have our helpless heroine.
Now I can understand why Tim Burton did merge the two characters because I think this is when you get a sense that the two did merge. I hate that idea, but I know why he did it now. Like upon seeing this again, because like I said before, this is kind of a soft reboot of the whole show in a way. Because they're redoing like the governess coming on, except Victoria's leaving, so Maggie has to replace her. I also have to say that I miss.
Okay,
Like
who
the
put Maggie in the
stronger-
19th century dress? Do ghosts just go disrobe humans now
Ghost
and
rape.
change their clothes?
Yeah, this is a
Or
ghost
was
rape.
it
That's
like
a problem.
This is the forecast. You know, this is basically, you know, the foreshadowing of Barbara Hershey's character in The Entity.
Scalping. What was that movie called? Oh, it was High Spirits or something with Peter O'Toole.
Oh yeah,
Ghosts used to scalp. Scalping.
I miss
mean,
Maggie's strong character role, though. I don't like
too.
this naive, like, I don't know anything. And she questions herself. Like, there was this, hold on, I think I have a quote written down somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Oh my God, it was so irritating to me. It's like she would know that she's seen something, like, I saw a man, and she couldn't explain it. Like, even though someone spelled it out for her, she kept trying to explain it, even though someone already said it was a ghost. And then she's still trying to explain. It's like, did I see it or didn't I? And then when someone says you didn't see that, or if they agree with her, then she acts shocked. Barnabas, you can't agree with me. I didn't actually see it. Like, I'm going to see if I can find the quote because it was so irritating.
Is it just me, or is Rachel and Barnabas getting sweet on each other?
Well, we're not to that point yet. We're still on.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
but Rachel's mooning at him around this point, though.
Yeah, no, but we're in scene
Maggie's still
later
Maggie.
on. That's in scene
Are
4.
we still? No, we're in the 19th.
We're still in the present. We're still in the present in scene 3.
Oh, that's right. We are.
Say, I do like the exorcism of the house, though. I do wonder is where in the old house did Willie have to hurry up and like get the other bedrooms ready because they only have Josette's bedroom that's ever been done. The rest of the
We had to do some
Well,
quick work,
everybody
that's
stays
for
in
sure.
Josette's bedroom too. Did you notice? And
That's
why?
true.
I mean, does he? Is it because he just refuses to accept electricity and stuff like that? He just wants to live like he did in the 1700s. That's
Right.
why.
Well, is Mrs. Johnston basically just roasting things on the pit? And is she cooking like on like a just?
Well,
a
that's
pit?
what I'm wondering. Who's cooking? Who's
And
doing
are they
this
just
stuff?
like? And are they just running out to the outhouse to use the bathroom?
Well, yeah,
that's a
where
great
is
one.
the
How do
bathroom?
they
They
do
must
that?
have
Can you
running
imagine?
water, right? I'm assuming they have running water, at least.
No, they don't.
I think that they should all move to a hotel rather than go to the old
They
house.
should have gone to the
because how the
Collinsport
heck-
Inn.
Well, they've already been chased out because of Quentin at this point, I'm assuming,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
And-
so
and
Quentin they all go up to the old house. So basically, they're all living in the old house, which is kind of like.
Well, the thing is, they're supposed to stay out of Collinwood, but you notice they go back to Collinwood more than they're supposed to.
Well,
If
that's
they're
David and Amy going back and forth.
Well, David
all
and
the time.
Amy go back, and Maggie runs after him. But by the way, there will be an old house with electricity, but we're not going to see that for a long time
Right.
But remember what I'm talking about. There will be an old house with electricity, but not here. And it's maybe the reason why Quentin was laughing so much. Maybe the reason why Quentin was laughing so much was because he knew that he was sending them back to a house with no bathroom facilities.
Awesome.
So I think another problem is that basically we know that Liz owns a number of properties.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris is at the cottage. I mean, they could have kicked Chris out and put him in the cottage. Or what about the house that she gave to Victoria and Burke back in the day?
Right.
They could have moved there. Had electricity. Had a nice view of the cliff.
This is true, but
writers had forgotten about
those things. You're not supposed to think about those things. So.
But the
you
whole
can't think too hard.
Kind of wonders, they're all living at Barnabas's old house, where basically that Willie's basically only been able to do a couple of rooms because before he was able to do the rest of the house, they locked him up a Windcliff. Then they surprised they didn't carry. And then he's running stupid errands all the time.
I'm surprised they didn't carry Willie to Windcliff. I'm surprised they didn't carry Willie to Windcliff with all the pressure that he was under to get everything going there.
Yeah, no, I almost forgot about Willie, and then all of a sudden you get just the smallest cameo to remember. Oh yeah, he's here too.
Yeah.
Because it's been a while since we actually seen him as like a.
We haven't seen a good caning in a long time. Willie.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Willie.
Yeah, we missed those. We missed those. Yeah, that's for sure.
Adam did he go with Adam to help Adam get his plastic surgery? I mean, that's the last time we saw him was when he was in the
clinic.
No, everything just changed instantaneously. Adam's gone. Everything just.
Joe disappeared.
No, Joe's in Windcliff. Joe, they got rid of Joe. They put him in Windcliff in the straitjacket thing.
That would have been fun to see.
You think that Carolyn or Elizabeth would go, so, Dr. Hoffman, how's Joe doing at Windcliff since he's one of your patients?
Yeah.
Well, the ironic thing, and we're not going to... I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
I love how Julia just knows all that there is to know about supernatural, like how to treat werewolves. And I mean, does she have like supernatural manuals on how to treat these supernatural beings? I just think it's interesting.
She's always got drugs. Have you noticed she's always trying to give people a sedative?
It's like a special residency.
Caramels. Instead of passing around caramels, she's passing around sedatives to anyone who wants one.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah, here's a sedative. I'm sorry that I startled you. That's another thing. And
I mean, would she have put like cough syrup on a baby's pacifier and pacify it and put it to sleep that way? I don't know.
Brandy and Sherry.
Brandy, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
That's what they did
back in the day, though. You could get all that stuff. I mean, they used to prescribe like gangbusters back then.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
I mean, Julia's always got an injection ready to inject anyone who needs it.
Yeah.
And don't forget her magic pendulum.
I didn't see that in this
ugly
block. Did she still have it in this block?
I don't. She hasn't been. She did on Tom. She did on Tom, I think.
Yeah, she did.
Wants to figure out if he saw what the hell is her name? Terry Crawford's character, Beth. Yeah.
You mean Chris? You mean she did it on Chris?
Yeah, to see if she saw Beth, or she saw Beth, my bad.
Right. She did it with Chris.
I mean, Julia's not dispensing drugs. Elizabeth is.
Yeah, true.
You know what would have been a cool method for her to hypnotize people? I know it's not very conducive, but maybe her hand is big enough to fit it in. But one of those triangles that has that clock that goes like that sound. What is that called?
Metronome.
Metronome? Okay, yeah, that would be cool. I've always wanted to see that used as a way to hypnotize people in like a cool movie or something. I don't know why, but that's always been like a cool idea to me. It would have been way cooler.
A little ball thing.
Yeah, that too. It would have been better than seeing her ugly, weird-looking medallion that has cheap-ass thrift store sequins on it.
Well, now but the medallion is so Julia, though.
I'll bet fans would pay
at this point
5 figures for that medallion
it's
now.
True, they would.
Oh, easy, dog.
Yeah. So that ugly, cheap medallion wouldn't be so cheap anymore.
I keep trying to find that what do you call it? The music box. You cannot find them anywhere.
I know.
But the music box?
Yeah.
Oh no, they're still very rare, but they're like $400 now a piece. I had one, and the cleaning lady destroyed it. I was very pissed off.
Death.
Really.
Oh my God, I would have
Poor
had
Josette.
Avery out of that.
But that was so those original music boxes, they were so fragile and like
Yeah.
they made them of plastic, that kind of thing.
Then you got Quentin's theme now.
Well, speaking of
They're beating the hell out of Quentin's theme though.
Yeah, they're driving everyone nuts with it.
we'll get into that in the next scene.
In this context, it's just kind of like obnoxious.
Well,
it doesn't have an emotional resonance.
Well, they are
on
playing
Amazon
Quentin's
Prime,
theme
they
here.
got a whole block of how they broke down some of the dark shadows. It's called The Haunting of Collinwood.
Yeah, the haunting,
It's like
the curse, and all
hours.
that. Yeah,
Like 3 hours or something. I think
Yep. Absolutely.
That's pretty good.
I mean, you have to sit there and say that the exorcism and chasing the family out was it was very interesting. I think they did.
Yeah.
I thought so too.
I
I like how Louis Edmonds turns around and says, "We'll be back."
That was the only time whatever he said rhymed. We'll be back. Have no fear of that. That was his.
I forget which scene it was, but I got chills from like one moment of the show when I thought it was when David said something, but there was one scene, and this has only happened the one time I've watched Dark Shadows, when I actually got chills from like a line of characters. I'm like, wow, that was actually kind of intense. Wow. But I can't remember for the life of me what it was now.
The only thing I think they missed out on is that when you saw the last scene and basically you saw this empty house, it would have been nice if they did what they did like at Halloween, where basically they like but all the different rooms, like nobody in them, like two.
Yeah,
sort of thing as the credits are going. That would have been quite nice, but I thought it was very, very effective.
How do they not know the history of their own home, though? The West Wing, it seems like everything happens in the West Wing, and they've got all this valuable crap over here in the West Wing, but nobody ever goes over there. Or, wouldn't you want to know what's going on in other parts of your household?
Well, it's a bit like
maybe not in Dark Shadows when everybody was scared to see what was going on beyond their own room.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So probably not. And one of the things that I was amazed, you of course, Quentin's West Wing room in the present, it's all disheveled.
Quentin required a whole wing to himself.
100 years. Yeah, the initial, it was like a storage room and everything was so dirty and stuff. And then his room. And then when you get back to 1897 and you see how it looked like originally with the bookcase in what comes, and it was great. Oh my God. I mean, he really had a nice little suite of rooms there. And even when he takes later, Barnabas sees it all for the first time, and he's looking around because up to that point he saw the way it looked in 1968, and now he sees the way it looked 100 years earlier. Oh my God, everything was so new, I was like, wow, what a great, was that Cy Thomas off? What a great job in terms of fixing that all up. That was really something.
Yeah, I imagine that they probably closed off the West Wing probably during the Depression.
Most likely.
Possibly.
I do kind of wonder, though, what kind of childhood that Elizabeth and Roger had, because they don't seem to know any of the special, like the special corridors and the secret passages. And you just think, being a kid growing up, you probably would have been exploring all the time. And they don't.
Can you imagine growing up in a house that was actually, that kind of house?
David tends to do a lot of exploring, and which it seems natural for a kid to do. It's nothing, and Amy does a lot of exploring. But then you think about Carolyn doesn't seem to have done any exploring when she was growing up, and neither does Elizabeth and Roger. That's
what's annoying, is that they live in this extremely haunted house. It's been established, or at least hinted at since episode 1 as well, that it's been a very haunted house. Like, you get that vibe that there's a lot of darkness, and yet no one seems aware, and yet they actually seem more surprised than anything else when something like this happens, even though it's happened with Laura, it's happened with Barnabas, it's happened with so many different spiritual...
Cassandra. They live through Cassandra.
So many different experiences.
Oh, God,
All of those go out the window. No one remembers dealing with these situations, or the fact that they were supernatural. And I mean, like, Laura's was heavy. You know that there's a lot of weird psychic energies going on. Now it's the only other time they brought outside people in, because they brought in that doctor, which I can't remember the name of.
Peter Guthrie.
Yeah. And wasn't he
John
a psychiatrist as well as like dealing with the supernatural? I don't remember what he did, but
parapsychologist. He was a parapsychologist.
Yeah, that's what it was. I thought that was fascinating, and I wish they would have brought on another.
I only say I wish, and everybody, he's still alive. John Lascelles is still alive, and he's 93.
Oh wow!
He lives in L.A. And I did try to get him to interview, and unfortunately, he was not amenable to it because of his own, particular medical challenges that he's going through right now. But he's. But I will tell you, when I spoke to him on the phone, boy, he was still alive and kicking, even if he didn't think he was. And I think that character, because that is Stokes later on took on the role that Lascelles left, and I am I'm almost mad that they killed him off the way they did. Because if they had kept him on, I think he could have been just like Kavada Humphrey as Janet Findlay. They had her on for 3 days, and then they killed her off. Right. That was so ridiculous. They could have had her on. She would have been a valuable contribution to the show. She was good. Same thing with John Lascelles as Peter Guthrie. But that's the way it was.
I would have actually with that character in mind. I think it would have been an interesting pairing to pair him up with like Professor Stokes or something, because you think that they would have like a special child psychologist working with David, because Julia should be playing that role, but she really isn't. Wow. She really isn't. And David isn't getting any assistance, even psychological assistance. Like, everyone thinks he's just crazy, but it's like, even if they thought that he was just imagining this, you'd think that someone would have reached out to get assistance and help for both David and Amy, but they're not even getting that, but they did with David and Laura's situation with Dr. Guthrie. So I don't know why they're not doing that now. Plus, that character is very interesting, and with him and Professor Stokes working together, I think that would have made it even more interesting than what they did. Yeah.
How did Peter Guthrie come to the attention of the family? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember that either.
I'm trying to remember how.
I don't either.
Oh boy, I think it may have been one of the Garner people that knew about Peter Guthrie. Was either I think it was Frank Garner. I think it was Frank Garner knew about Peter Guthrie, and that's how that's how it happened. But I agree with you. These are all missed opportunities. But again, they weren't thinking that far ahead. They were thinking, how can we keep the fans interested? How can, and so forth. And anyway.
It was an interesting, it's been a really good block, though. I don't think the fans would have been not interested. I know that, the people I've talked to.
That was pre-Barnabas. Got to remember that. That was
pre-Barnabas. Well, people really, if you've ever noticed, everything starts on episode 208 or 210. 210. Nobody ever wants to go back. No, I mean, it really does make a lot of sense if you do. If you start out from the very beginning. It's painful, yes, but I mean, is it worth it?
You've got two schools.
I don't think it's painful. I actually love the first series.
I love the first season.
I agree.
I like all of it.
You just got some, you have two schools of thought in the fandom. And the one thought in the fandom is that it all starts with Barnabas, and before Barnabas, Dark Shadows was nothing. That's a lot of nonsense in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah. No. It's because you really get a richness of watching it from the beginning. And even though there are the slow points, and it takes them 30 days to get an autopsy, and we talked about that before, you do though get a more global view of how things developed up to the point where, and that includes Jimmy Hall and his 5 performances as Willie. And a lot of people that never saw that don't realize that there was more than one Willie. And Jimmy Hall's still alive today and living in California, and great guy, really great guy. So you get you do get a bigger picture if you watch it from the beginning, and that's my take on it. I'm glad you agree, Jesse. Oh, and look! Oh, there's Joshua. There's Joshua.
Barnabas is using I-2 wands to make contact with Quentin and save David. Barnabas goes back to 1897 and is trapped in his coffin. Xander, the gypsy, lets him out. Barnabas meets Magda, who realizes that Barnabas is a vampire. Quentin is suspicious of Barnabas, who says he is visiting from England. Grandmother Edith has a secret to tell. Barnabas meets Carl Collins, who pulls a trick gun on him. Quentin tells new governess Rachel Drummond about the tower room. Quentin forces Jameson to steal the will. Evan Hanley performs a ritual to summon a spirit to help him and Quentin deal with Barnabas. Judith informs her brother that she is the sole beneficiary of the Collins fortune, and Quentin attempts voodoo on Barnabas. What are your thoughts on this, Tom?
Here is where we really start getting into some fun with shadows. The I Ching idea was very, very creative in terms of how are they going to get Barnabas to go back into time again. And, you've got Professor Stokes as the academic genius who knew all about I Ching to instruct Barnabas, and of course Julia's watching in fascination in terms of that, and then of course and of course there's a little takeoff. Xandor is now Willie looking for the family jewels, and and meets and of course the blooper is that in terms of the chains, all Xandor has to do is all Thayer David has to do is just push the chains and they fall off. Which is really, I mean, they didn't want to spend 5 minutes on him working on the chains. That's one of the few bloopers, which was really fun. And then, after you see the neck bites look more like, mosquito bites, the way they were made up. Protruding. Yeah. And then, of course, there you have the whole introduction of the 1897 family. And there's where it was Selby as Quentin starts to speak, and you really find out what a good actor he is, and the way he's able to embrace the ne'er-do-well black sheep of the family at that particular time. John Carlin as Carl is the I don't know, what would you call him? He's the developmentally disabled, practical joker of the family, who really gives Barnabas his start when he pulls that gun on him and you see fib, that kind of thing. And I mean, he really scared the hell out of Barnabas. And you can see that, the character, and John Carlin really does him well, because this is the first time we see John Carlin in a different character than Willie. And we get an idea of the tremendous range that John Carlin, may he rest in peace, had in terms of that. Grandmother Edith, Isabella Hoop, 76 years old when she did that. She was born in April of 1893. I mean, that gives you an idea. She was actually 4 years old in 1897. So she was actually alive during that period of time. And you really, I loved, oh my God, she was so great. You loved her. And, when she comes back as the ghost, and you see her, she's a hunchback, and she's given Selby hell, and Selby can't wait to get the hell away from her. Judith, it's a tour de force. Edward as Louis Evans as Edward is the perfect Victorian. And I don't care. He makes Roger. He's a combination of Roger and Joshua, and he's perfect. He's absolutely perfect.
For this part, definitely.
Yeah, and Joan Bennett as Judith. Then
she definitely shone in these. She really got to shine, I think, in these episodes. It was something that we've been deprived of, because she's kind of sketchy, which is really cool about it. Because is she dishonest or isn't she dishonest? Is she being kind of, you just don't know.
We don't have any semblance of Elizabeth in this character, because
she is.
In 1795, Naomi and Elizabeth's daughter are very, very closely. You can tell.
Yeah, but not like this.
This one is like we get a different Joan Bennett playing.
Although guess what? The one parallel between Naomi and Judith is that they both drink sherry, and although Naomi was more of a lush, with the Sherry because she was having such an unhappy relationship with Joshua. But I think we've got the women's lib now in Judith, who finally realizes that, through the will and the whole plot with the will, and how that changes hands. And
did these people have happy memories growing up at all?
Nah. Well, they even hated. Quentin mentions they even hated playing with each other as kids.
Well, I can't imagine too many people wanting to play with Quentin. But I mean, is he a womanizing fool at all? I mean, he seems to be. Does he like Beth? Or is he just using Beth?
I think he's just a rich guy that basically, if he wants something, he takes it. Doesn't matter what it is. And then when he's bored, he throws it away.
He's an opportunist. He's a ne'er-do-well. He's an opportunist. He's very devious. And of course, we got Evan Hanley. Humperdinck Estrado returns as Evan Hanley, the lawyer who's the devil, who runs a devil worshipping club on the side.
Yeah.
And so shades of Nicholas Blair. And I think that was a nice touch. And the dealings between Quentin, who dabbled in the occult himself, and because remember, Quentin picked up the I Ching wands on a visit to the Orient while he was touring the world. And that's how, that's where, Barnabas finds the I Ching wands in the present. In Quentin's room, and now we see the parallel that Quentin had him in that room because but Quentin really didn't know too much about it, but he was just like really, really curious. But and of course this is the way for the ceremony that Evan Hanley performs. And it really should be part of scene 4. But the ceremony that Evan Hanley performs is the way we get Lara Parker back as Angelique.
Right.
Who the last time we saw Angelique, she was burned in 1796 when Barnabas returned to her
in the tower room. Can't forget.
Correct. And that's why they have that little reunion in the tower room, which is kind of interesting. So we've got and all this whole thing with who's getting the money, and and of course that of course is a standard thing. Everybody, the family, everybody wants the money after the grandam dies. But who's really got it?
She was funny though, that old lady.
Oh,
she was
great.
Just creepy as. For one, like she'd be sitting in that chair or whatever she'd be wanting. She was smart. Yeah. Well, she was hard to figure out because she knew what was going on around her. But at the same time, did she hate Quentin? Does she like Quentin? Because she's giving off different vibe here.
Well, it was apparently established that when he was a kid, she liked him, but she didn't like what he turned into, and she couldn't trust him. And sure enough, Quentin tried to threaten to kill her if she didn't tell the secret to him. And and I think
so everybody's bared this burden of this secret. And we're just like watching over this.
What is the secret? And the secret, it was brilliant. The secret, of course, was Barnabas.
Right.
And we learned that it had been passed on through the eldest son ever since Barnabas, ever since Daniel, I guess. And, and the whole, and the horror on Fred's face when he realizes, when he's meeting Edith, old Edith, and he realizes that he was the secret. And that's great. I mean, that's really great, And
it also means that basically Barnabas' secret is only handed down through the patriarch. So basically, the person who runs the fortune and runs the home knows the secret. Right. And they can only pass that secret to the next person who's going to own the house.
And Edward expected to be the one. And that's why and he's kicking himself because he was away.
Okay, I'm confused because I don't know if I missed something or if I got distracted. Was she supposed to get the not Beth, but not Elizabeth's daughter, Judith. Was Judith supposed to get all the money? Because it didn't seem like the old lady wanted to.
If Quentin was,
and someone changed the will,
who could be trusted and was able to run a household and run a business, it probably would have gone to Quentin, but Quentin is a philanderer.
Okay, but he changed the will with the help of Thayer.
He attempted to. Okay.
But
Barnabas caught him. Barnabas caught
Okay. I
Dandor
missed
with his
something
hand
then.
in the till there, and made sure that the original will was put in the it was put in the lining of Edith's casket. Excuse me. No, I'll take that back. The original will was put in the lining of Edith's casket, and David and Jameson found that and gave it to Quentin. But then Barnabas found it out from Xandor, and Barnabas had it put in the family history book, and Judith found that. And Judith found the will in the family history book. So that was, and it's a nice bit of Roger Dodger and subterfuge and stuff like that. But the original will did have Elizabeth did have Judith inheriting everything, and Quentin getting nothing, except that Quentin did have the right to have that, to live there for the rest of his life. And even Judith couldn't kick Quentin out. Although she did try to kind of try to bribe him to get out, but Quentin refused. And so in answer to your question, the original will did have Judith inheriting everything. And when Judith found that out, she turned from somebody who was basically doing what Edward was telling her to now I'm the matriarch, and I'm the women's lib kind of thing, and
I'm the mistress of this house.
I'm the mistress, and nobody tells me what to do. And boy, did she give them all hell.
Nobody's the boss of me.
And you also have to remember, during this time period, for a woman to be everything that's quite a milestone.
Yes,
and because of that, you got to remember that because Judith gets everything, that actually is
Elizabeth gets everything, right?
Well, Judith has everything, so that basically means that Quentin is going to be the laughing stock of Collinsburg.
Well, what about Edward?
Quentin, but Edward, yes, I agree. Edward is going to be the laughing stock, and that is really it's worrying all of them, because Elizabeth has Judith has everything. And the rest of them have nothing financially, and they're all dependent upon Judith.
Well, don't they all work? Don't they have the running
Apparently
of the family?
Yeah, but they're all working for Judith.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Right.
Judith owns the company.
I just think Joan Bennett did such an outstanding job as Judith. I just love watching
whatever
canning facility that.
And didn't you like there's those outfits? There's a couple of scenes where Joan Bennett is wearing this blue Victorian dress.
I love that dress. I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And the blue earrings, and boy, is she stunning with that. It's a pale blue dress. Boy, is she stunning in that. I just
love how she shines in these episodes.
Another thing,
she's been so, what's the word? She's worried about her dead husband in the cellar, and we go through all this stuff, through all these,
Well, Liz is still the leader of the family, but she's the tortured leader of the family.
Yes, and it's nice to see her kicking some butt.
Because Judith is not tortured. Judith is now the one who can tell everyone what to do, doesn't have any qualms about it. She even tells Dirk Wilkins what the hell, and he's like, "Who are you?" He goes, "I'll tell you who I am. I own the house, and you work for me." And like,
how did we dispatch Ned and we got Dirk? We
didn't dispatch him. Ned is kind of hanging in the present, and then Dirk is the overseer of the Collinwood estate in 1897. Just a Roger Davis play. Both they wanted to give. Dan Curtis loved Roger Davis back then, and he wanted to give him a chance, every chance you get to put him into the show. So that, and we're going to see more, and we're going to see something very interesting in terms of the dynamics between Dirk and Judith later on. And I don't want to get into that, but there's going to be a little bit of a reversal and some justice. But anyway, but regarding this is to me, this whole. And also Quentin attempting voodoo on Barnabas Keith, which you mentioned in scene 4, and there is and that's with the cane. That's with putting the cane on the doll, and because it's silver, Barnabas feels this crushing sensation on his chest, and it's one of the first time, one of the few times that we actually see Barnabas as a vampire being kind of cowed by the potential power that Quentin has, but that's nothing compared to Angelique. And the big, I think, in this scene, the really big advantage is to see the return of Laura Parker and and once again the love-hate relationship, and after all this time, she's still hoping that they can start over again. It's incredible.
She's got it really bad for him.
The fact that we got Barnabas. Barnabas goes, oh, I've come from England. I come to visit you. And Quentin goes, I've been in England. There's no Collinses over there. Who the hell are you?
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Oh, I forgot about that. That was the one with
and don't forget, Edward's going to England, too. It's just like, can't they find out whether, Barnabas isn't going to matter because he's going to be leaving, but, So
I thought that was quite well. It's quite nice because, when he came, in the 1960s, when Barnabas wakes up and he said that everyone kind of just takes it, oh, he's from England. Oh, that's great. Even though
I'm not seeing a bunch of Carolyn.
Even though he doesn't have much of an English accent. Where this is great. I was in England not too long ago. I don't remember seeing you there at all. So.
Well, Fred never had an English accent. That was his Canadian accent.
Yeah,
but everybody kind of ignored that. And everybody ignored accents with very few exceptions. There's no New England accent on any of them. With again, very few exceptions, and that's from the first year.
Judith attempts accent every once in a while. I mean, she did the French one for a little while, and that dropped off.
Oh, Grayson Hall, you mean? Oh, Grayson Hall. I know she dropped that
accent. I think that drops off after a while.
It did drop off. And the last time we saw Natalie Dupre, she almost had a Brooklyn accent. So, so there you go. But now things are really getting, with this scene, I think things really, really started picking up. The writing was much better. There weren't that many bloopers. The plot line was engaging. Not only the seriousness, but the comic relief among the characters, especially when they're having that scene with the will, and they're all talking with each other, and they're all accusing each other. And Quentin says, "Oh, I think I'm going to cry," at the absurdity of the whole situation, and very well written, very well written.
I'm a bit confused. Who's Jameson's parent?
I'm sorry,
Louis Edmonds. Isn't Louis Edmonds? Is it?
Louis Edmonds Louis Edmonds. Edward is Jameson.
And Laura Collins, I think.
Would be the mother.
Collins.
I thought it was Jenny for some reason.
No, Jenny is Quentin's wife.
That's right. Okay. I got confused. Okay.
Well, Quentin's drunken.
Wait, is he the actual father, or is Quentin the actual father?
Of who?
I know.
Of the kids? No. Quentin. That's later on, but Quentin and Jenny had twins.
Right.
Okay. And I don't want to get into it, but there's going to be an ancestor relationship that has nothing to do with Jameson and Nora. Jameson and Nora, the parents of Jameson and Nora, are Edward and Laura. And so that really sets up an interesting. So
Laura, because it's been about 100 years, so we're ready for another.
So we've got incestuous.
Cry daddy.
Yep.
So Judith doesn't, because I wasn't quite sure, because Judith doesn't have any kids then at all. She's not even married.
Who's this?
Judith.
No, Judith doesn't have any. No, Judith is. That's correct.
Well, he calls her a spinster a couple times, didn't he? Someone called her a spinster.
An old maid.
Which is kind of bizarre that you would leave the money the fortune to the spinster and not leave it to the brother who basically would be able to pass it on to the family name who would be his kids. So it's kind of
right.
Scene 5. Barnabas tells Rachel of her close resemblance to Josette. Wonder why that is. Barnabas believes that Rachel is the reincarnation of Josette. Angelique casts a spell on her. Barnabas finds Rachel lying inside his coffin. Barnabas asks Magda for an amulet to protect Rachel, and Angelique shows Barnabas a terrifying vision. Yeah, I have to sit there and say, for me personally, I don't really care about the whole Josette thing. We did that. I bought that. I have a t-shirt somewhere.
Agreed. I agree.
I even think it might be on one of our Signia's t-shirts in the near future. So yeah, I don't know why they're bringing the Josette thing all over again. It's like, where are you going to go?
It was
weird.
Such a big deal.
It's really weird. It's a very bizarre choice, if you ask me, because this has been done to death with Maggie, then Victoria. Now we're back to a rendition of Maggie, who is Rachel Drummond, Kitty Pryde.
Now I can say she's mooning after Barnabas. Is she mooning after Barnabas, or is that my imagination?
There is an attraction thing going on there, yeah.
Because Barnabas is pulling. He's treating her like he treated Vickie Winters all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, but I also think that, I mean, they could have left the whole Josette thing out, because let's be honest, you're not going to go back.
There's no hope for a romance.
We've seen the story of Josette.
Yeah.
Any kind of fiction or idea that we had about, the build-up of what the Josette storyline is, and then we saw the reality of it, which didn't kind of live up to the fable and everything that we heard. Then now to bring this back in, it's like, really? This is a bit, why can't Barnabas just be attracted to her for her just being who she is, instead of she reminds me of Josette? Because
well, but again, Keith, you were the one who was saying that you really thought that Vickie was the real love of Barnabas's life.
Precisely.
But the problem is that the writers don't want people to remember that, because they feel that this love story between Josette and Barnabas is, or whatever you can want to call it, is so much more, has so much more pathos. Because they're really looking to focus, in my opinion, they're looking to focus on the aberrational and the irrational and the neurotic. The neurotic is the best way I could put it. The neurotic relationship of Barnabas and Josette, where the relationship between Barnabas and Vickie is more of a maybe a hopeful and a happier and a more adjusted possible type of relationship. The writers did not want to focus on that. So they come back to this. And again, Vickie's out of the picture now completely. So now they're coming back to this. And I don't know if you get the sense in this scene that Barnabas, because I don't think it's ever mentioned that Barnabas believes that Rachel is the reincarnation of Josette. He never mentions that. It's an implied kind of thing, and that will come out later in the 1897 segment. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think that that's explicitly spelled out in this scene yet.
I mean, I think that's the only problem basically that I have with this, is that basically we've seen, we had Barnabas's, when he first appeared, the whole Josette thing. Then we went back in time, and then we saw how the whole Josette thing played out and stuff like this. And then we bounced back to present time, and then we got him, what was going on between Victoria and his love for her, sort of thing, and basically sacrificing everything that he wants for her, and kind of gotten over the whole Josette thing. To then come back to it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, now something happens, he went from 1797 not 1797, and then he jumped forward to this time period.
Right.
It would make a bit of sense. But we got Barnabas from modern day Barnabas incorporated into the body of 1897 coffin Barnabas. So
the epitome of redundant.
He has all his history with him. He knows where he's from. He knows where he's gone through. And I guess another thing is, if you're just coming into the show, Josette has never been mentioned, so it doesn't really mean anything to you if you're a newbie. Mm-hmm. If you've been following the series as well, it still doesn't make a lot of sense because you followed the series anyway, so you've already seen the whole Josette thing play out.
It's literally like being slapped in the face with a wet noodle. I'm so tired of it, and it's so obnoxious. It's so obnoxious. I've never seen this storyline done in a more obnoxious way than it is right here.
Well, a lot of people
come back to it again and again. There's going to be a time later when it's finally going to be resolved.
Right, but that's not for a long time, though.
That's correct.
Where all the Josettes and Maggies in the universe are unified within one portrait, and it's some kind of weird spiritual psychedelic 60s thing. taking place in the Victorian period. So, I don't know. It's just so bizarre. I don't like it. I'm so over it. I kind of wish they would've just
Barnabas is just looking for love. That's what
but why can't Barnabas fall in love with regular
always.
people? Why can't he just have numerous love interests instead of trying to put that one Josette character on every woman he meets, which usually happens to be a version of Maggie? It's so weird. And Victoria had better chemistry than Maggie and Barnabas, because Maggie and Barnabas was a forced thing because she was being threatened, hurt, harmed, and hypnotized to be Josette. So they didn't ever develop a loving relationship the way that Vickie and Barnabas kind of sort of did. So that would make more sense than trying to force any version of Maggie or Catherine Lee Scott's.
And the only sexual interaction that Barnabas has ever had, when there's been any kind of sexual fireworks going on, is with Angelique.
Yeah, you pointed that out also.
It never was with Josette. Yeah. Josette was kind of like, okay, well, this is going to be a loveless marriage if these two get together.
Well, the movie House of Dark Shadows actually did a better job of representing exactly how creepy the relationship between Maggie and Barnabas was, because they depicted Barnabas as a much older, creepy-looking, balding vampire. And that's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly what the relationship is. And you never get like, oh, yeah, this is an appropriate relationship. They're of the similar age. It could potentially work out. It feels very creepy more than anything else. And to have this kind of weirdness constantly come out after you've established that, having Barnabas and Julia would have made a much better storyline. I feel like that could be done better nowadays than it maybe would have then, because reasons. I don't even know why exactly, but I would have rather had seen it, because
it would have been great.
It's such a long way, and then to backtrack and go back to it is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're doing a good thing here.
The Laura Parker
I think what they should have done there is basically Julia gives Barnabas the rape drug, and the next morning it wakes up and Julia and Barnabas are in bed together. Barnabas is like, what the hell?
Hypnol Barnabas.
I've been GBH'd.
In fact, on Facebook, there's a very famous, what do they call that? Photoshop of Barnabas and Julia in bed in the
it's so awkward.
I haven't seen that.
Oh yeah,
awkward.
You guys
and you should see that smile on Julia's face, boy.
But I guess the problem basically is that I guess what we're kind of fed with, agreeing with Jesse here, is that you could just basically have Barnabas attracted to Rachel Drummond and just kept it at that.
Right.
Because I said before, they keep, it's like you're being force fed something that's like, well, we've already been force fed this already, and we weren't force fed it. We enjoyed it. We enjoyed the whole thing,
around, yeah.
and we enjoyed everything up to now. But it's like, why are we going 5 steps back again? Why we need to do this?
Right.
Because you could have had a more interesting story with, he just fall in love with Rachel for whatever reason.
There is also a little bit of a reworking, but for a different reason, between Rachel and Maggie when Barnabas when she's discovered in the coffin. The difference is that Barnabas put Maggie in the coffin back in the original plot. Here, Angelique's spell on Rachel leads Barnabas to discover her in the coffin. So it's the same scene for different reasons. But there is no doubt in my mind that the writers are still trying to establish, because Catherine Lee Scott played both characters. So the writers are still trying to establish a connection between this unholy love. But here we have the more mature Barnabas, who has grown from the blood-sucking evil vampire that he was 2 years ago. And so here he's horrified to see Rachel in the coffin, whereas he actually put Maggie in the coffin there 2 years ago. And of course now we have, and that was pre-Angelique also, when he put Maggie in the coffin. So
but we also have the Maggie that just before he goes back in time, that there seems to be some kind of attraction between Maggie and Barnabas anyway, that they were trying to establish in the beginning there before they go back in time. So that would have kind of continued where he's
Okay.
looks just like Maggie. She doesn't have to look like Joe. That she's now sort of like Maggie. I'm saying it could have gone that way.
I don't think it's as it's as strong though. I think Maggie is something that the current Barnabas would like to forget. All the stuff that and there was
seems to be a little bit intrigued by him on this block. When you saw,
she doesn't have Joe. Well, she doesn't have Joe anymore, and that's another thing. So and of course,
Chris is off with Carolyn. So the young stud's gone. So the only leaves the old man.
Exactly.
Roger. Which one's going to be? Who do you want, Maggie? Barnabas or Roger? Who do you want to be your man?
Ew. Ugh.
I don't think
what happened to Joe?
Or do you want to wait 5 years until David's grown up?
Yeah.
Joe, come back.
And I don't want to
There's
say
always Willie.
I don't want to say what happens to Maggie in the end because that's a long time from now.
Right.
But ironically, I have a feeling that Maggie and Joe met again, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And we'll know why. Maybe in a few months when we get to that block, because we're really going. And I think that's just very ironic. It was accidental. But anyway, do you see though how we're in scene 5 already, and do you see how now things are really happening a mile a minute, and there's all these again 5, and we're back to 19, with all those plots with Nicholas and Angelique and Adam and everything's happening. There are five or six plots going on at once and all interchanging with each other and all intermingling. And Dark Shadows is now back on track. They got pretty slow with the turn of the screw thing. But the show is now back on track. And this is one of the most interesting parts of the show. And, I don't know if you want me to sing Quentin's theme, Keith, but I've got the music for it. That's up to you. But I think it's that is an interesting. That was of course the number. That was in the top 10 of 1968. And I'll leave that for you, Keith. We'll either do it now or another time. It's your
I
show.
think what we're going to do is go to our scene 6 first.
Let's do it.
And then I think we'll probably close with you doing us our Quentin.
Okay.
Scene. Scene 6. An escapee from the tower room sets Edward's room on fire. Jenny Collins attacks Rachel and locks her in the tower room. She then attacks Judith. Barnabas searches the tower room for Rachel's attacker. After Jenny hears Quentin's music, grabs a knife and searches for Quentin. Jenny stabs Quentin and leaves him to die. Barnabas finds Dirk leaning over the body. Barnabas summons Angelique to save Quentin, who raises him up from the grave like a zombie.
Fun.
Jesse, what are your thoughts on this?
I like how you waited to ask me for the episodes that are a bit awkward. But anyway, yeah, I thought it was both intriguing, but also kind of like, what? I was a little confused by some of these things, but I do love the introduction of Jenny, and I find some of these aspects very intriguing. Like, I don't know why, but I just like that she's locking Rachel up in the tower. And I also like that they're bringing, what is the actress that plays Jenny? What's her name again?
Marie Wallace.
Yeah, Marie Wallace. She's phenomenal. So I'm glad they found something else for her to do besides playing Eve.
She is excellent in this. I mean, she plays that shit really good. Again, why can't anybody find these ladies a comb? I don't understand.
It's dramatic.
It's like somebody brushed their effing hair.
She's mad and crazy thinking the dolls are alive, so obviously it's like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's the point for her to look like one of her dolls that she has, because she does look like a porcelain doll with the crazy-ass curls.
Yeah, she doesn't comb her doll's hair either, so...
No.
Does the dolls even
her
have
baby,
hair?
Her baby. Yeah, they put that matted hair and stuff. Yeah, that was also very...
They still haven't given us the secret of why they hide her. No.
Well, I mean, we do know that basically it has something to do with Quentin and his whatever went on there.
Something happened where they felt
I guess we'll cover next month. But
right.
But It's an intrigue. I have to say, this is a very intriguing story. I'm like, where the hell is this one going? I mean,
no, and like you were saying earlier, like this is a much more cohesive storyline. Like you have things going on that feel very connected, very fresh, very. It's just the right touch of sporadic with just enough to keep you going. Like you have this little threesome coven with like Quentin and Angelique and what's his name in the storyline? Evan Hanley. And like there's so many interesting things going on, like really interesting stuff that we haven't seen on Dark Shadows yet. That's why when you throw this Maggie Josette infatuation with Rachel Drummond into the mix or whatever the key price is or whatever, it's just obnoxious and it throws a wrench in that. And it's like, oh no, if you just took that out, like this would be perfect. This would be like a perfect circle right now. But you had to ruin it. You had to take that slice and cut it wide open.
Do you think maybe he was just throwing out teasers out there to test the waters?
Probably.
You know?
Maybe, but it's like, well, I mean, he could have just like Rachel Drummond him out. Would have been fine. That would have been fine. Like you can like other people. You can see other people. You don't have to turn everyone you see into Josette. Like if he likes Julia one day,
that was the obsession.
Her into Josette. I mean, how awkward would that be? It'd be very, very bizarre.
I think the throuple is a lot more interesting. The throuple being Beth, Rachel, and Quentin. That's quite interesting.
They were going on with work. And
Quentin brings on some very fresh energy, like something you haven't really seen in Dark Shadows yet.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool. Like maybe it's because
we have
he's
a second
too.
real handsome man on the show again too. You know, you got Chris.
I think
you don't have much beefcake back then for soap operas. No. You know,
I had Joe Crothers for a little while, but that was.
But Quentin's probably the most attractive male that's ever been on Dark Shadows, just in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say though, I think that sexually Quentin must have a little bit of a kink in him because they do say a little bit of things about like what went on. You know, they don't tell you anything. They're like kind of like hinting around about what went on between
less
Rachel
is more,
mad, and then they're kind of going. And then you got Beth, who's like kind of like sexually excited by Quentin, even though she's trying to stay away from him.
Right,
and knows that he's bad, but there's got to be something there. It's like.
Well, I think
Quentin's like the bad boy, kinky guy sort of thing. He's into
the weird and the macabre, you know. So he's probably, you know, I don't know, maybe a little Satanism with his sex on the side. Who knows? I'm not knocking it, Jess.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Quentin would be the kind of person that'll be up in the tower room with a puzzle box from Hellraiser.
Yeah.
I'd like to see what was the name of that character. Pinhead.
If Dan Curtis had made Dark Shadows now, I wonder what references he would have used instead of the ones that he ended up with. He would have had way more to work with than just like old English novels, as Victoria would say, with ghosts in the corridors.
I do want to say also, and this may have been mentioned, and I was away for a minute, but Marie Wallace is Jenny. And Marie Wallace, of course, returns, but of the three characters that she played on the show, Jenny is the favorite of the fans. Crazy Jenny.
She does such a wonderful job being nutso.
Oh yeah,
well, we got sexy, voluptuous Marie Wallace. That's the one. I mean, she was like sex on a stick, like
she's
beyond
cool. She's
Valley of the Dolls kind of. Now we got Mad Denny, which is fantastic, like total opposite. It's like God.
Well, we don't know that yet, and we're going to find that out that they were sisters.
Well, you know, everyone here is playing like very dynamic characters. Like everyone is showing you a different side of them. Like even John Bennett, like Vickie said earlier, like everyone is showing you a different side to them that we haven't seen it. It's not repetition. Right. But I will say, like Carl he's a bit too zany for me. Like,
I feel sorry for him because he's always so emasculated in any role Curtis gives him.
That's true.
Let him be.
He reminds me of the Cowardly Lion, like even with the accent.
You talking about Carlin?
Yes.
Well, there will be another role where he is not emasculated.
Well, I know, but I mean, it just seems to be a generalization at this point, you know? I mean,
they've given him, that it's true. I mean, in one, Willie is the emasculated one and Carl is the buffoon. And Carl is the child of the family that never kind of, and that's why when they had that little scene between Carl and Jameson, and Carl was telling Jameson, the mind is man, Jameson was already possessed by Quentin, and shook the hell out of Carl when he called him brother. But the thing but the Jenny character, which is introduced here in the relationship between Jenny and Beth, and you see, Vickie, this is what we remember. You said, I think, another point in time. Well, or we were talking about it, and that Beth was a real, you know what, but we see here that there's a tender side of Beth. In terms of the relationship between her and Jenny, and Beth is really feels sorry for her, and she is Jenny's principal caretaker, and she tries to protect Jenny when she can, because she knows that Jenny has gotten a real raw deal, and we're going to know what that raw deal is, which has originally turned Jenny from a really in the beginning. And we don't see this until later on, much later on. We get a little hint of what Jenny used to be before she turned into the crazy woman that she is. But Jenny was an actress kind of thing. She was a singer. She was full of life. She was full of love and so forth. And something happened to her to make her into what she is. And so it's a very.
Another thing is Quentin married down, didn't he, as well?
Yeah.
So,
that's part of it. That's part of it.
An actress in 1897, basically, you're better off. It's like marrying a whore off the street.
And we can talk about that.
At least she didn't marry in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we can talk about the family did not like her. And she does talk about when she's talking to Judith, and she's talking about, the fact that Judith used to give her dirty looks.
Sing the Red Rose.
Oh,
song.
my Lord. Red Rose. Oh, that was fun.
Oh, I know. That song was stuck in my head for a couple days after I heard that.
They gave her a chance to sing. Yeah. So
but don't you feel so? It doesn't matter what character, though, Magda or Julia is up against, she gets strangled all the time. Have you seen a person get more strangled than Julia?
That's true. No, that's true.
He hangs around with throat fetishes.
He strangled her in the movie too, but he killed her in the movie.
He did. Yeah. He's always she's always getting beat up.
Yep. I mean, I have to sit there and say that we kind of end this blog in a very, very good, interesting place.
Yeah.
I mean, I sit there and say I did jump ahead because I'm watching it on the disc now because I have the coffin set. So I'm watching the disc. So I try to watch it at the end of the disc. So I actually jumped. I think I got about 5 episodes ahead of here. And what's coming next is even better.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I'm right. It's really good.
We see a couple of old favorites coming back. We haven't really changed much, but we come back. It's like, yay.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, the only thing I can sit there and say that I was a bit disappointed was bringing Angelique back a little bit. And there's nothing against Laura Parker or Angelique, it's kind of like, oh, here we go again. It's like, no, Barnabas, haven't you ever learned a freaking lesson in your life? I'm going to trust Angelique again. Like, oh my God, really?
I know, because that's just going to be disastrous. We all know it's going to be disaster. So
I think you kind of deserve everything that happens to you. Fool you once, shame on you. Fool you twice, you're an idiot. Fool you 3 times, you're a real idiot.
Yeah.
I like to see Angelique, but in this case, I would have liked if she had nothing to do with Barnabas in this instance and had everything to do with Quentin, because I really do like the triple coupling of like not Nicholas, what the hell's his name? Evan Hamley, Quentin, and Angelique. I think like their storyline is so interesting and fascinating, but like again with the Josette, Barnabas, Angelique, like that's overplayed at this point. Let's do something a little different. I think that Angelique and Barnabas becomes more interesting later on, but with like that energy going on, it's very frustrating. So I can see where you're coming from, but I do like that they brought Angelique back. I would just like it better if she didn't in this instance have anything to do with Barnabas, because the minute she sees Barnabas, she's going to get distracted and put all her focus on him and lose all interest in what, like, her current affairs.
Get sucked out of the room again. And she's clearly aware of the time hopping.
Oh, yeah. And she would be.
Angelique, sure.
She's in hell probably looking
up. And she's the one that's telling Barnabas that he's changing history. Simply, and he points out rather shrewdly that so is she by coming back to this time. So they're both at fault there. But that's
also have the bastardization of the vampire as well, because he's a vampire. He's still a vampire now. He's back into being a vampire. So it's kind of
it's nice to see Angelique back as a witch instead of a vampire, because I feel like that dragged on a little too long. It was kind of interesting, but then it dragged on a little too long.
I never get tired of seeing Angelique as a vampire, but of course she first gained notoriety in the witch character, so that's what the fans are really going to remember. And I guess that's what they may have had the same kind of inclination, because remember,
Barnabas is a vampire now. I mean, it's just like he's kind of like the gentle vampire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of boring now. He doesn't have that veracity.
He's human.
Kind of.
Yeah, he's not human, but vampire name only.
Well, when you see Ben Cross do, like when he like Ben Cross's first kill in the only season, where he's getting Daphne. Holy shit,
Well, no, there's more than one. There's some. Doxy that he attacks in the parking lot.
But there's veracity, but it's really sexualized too. So there's a bunch of animal magnetism that goes into those scenes, and it's like, and that's what I guess maybe we're ahead by a couple of decades or so. So we've been desensitized to the sparkly, sexy vampire, and that's what we're missing.
What I'm saying is the vampire, Barnabas the Vampire in 1897 is a bastardized version of Barnabas, because basically it's human Barnabas from the modern day put into the body of a vampire Barnabas.
But the bottom line is, what do you want? Because either he's going to be a horrible, terrible Bela Lugosi type vampire, the way he was first introduced, or he's going to be a sanitized version, the way he is now, but someone who's grown.
He's not torn or twisted or anything. Basically, I mean, it's kind of weird. They should. I don't know. It's almost like maybe have him wake up and not be a vampire at all. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't understand why he wakes up as a vampire.
But that's when he's human.
Because if he goes back in the form that he is, he shouldn't be a vampire.
He's time
traveling.
He's not really a vampire now either.
But why are there no?
He's showing up at people's houses at night.
No, he is a vampire. No, in fact, they just don't have as many scenes. He did bite Sophie. What is it? Casey Townsend and Sophie Baker. That was a doxy that he bit in 1897.
Oh, don't remind me.
And he's going to have another vampire flame. And I'm not going to say with who, but you're going to see that happen. So they do bring him back, but they are more concerned with the evolved character that Barnabas has become, but they don't really. And of course, he bit Xandor, and he's going to bite another. There'll be a few characters, but it's certainly not what it was when he first came onto the scene and he was this evil. So my point is, look, I mean, it's six. You can have him one way or you can have him the other way.
I just think it would have been more interesting to bring him back in time the way Victoria went back in time. That's
right. That's what I was thinking.
What was frustrating is that you have a character, Barnabas, who had evolved over the series, and now he's devolved, and it's like you're left with that. And it's frustrating to see that, because then you do have like a watered down, weird, amalgamated version of Barnabas, and you're not sure what to do with him.
The problem.
And what do you do about the Collins family history about vampire Barnabas being in 1897 now?
Yeah,
well, now that's all changed, and it's probably not going to be talked about in the book. because they'll probably sanitize that. And, they never really talked about how does the book deal with 1897 Barnabas. Does the book show that version came to Collinwood, or that was never even touched?
Well, he must. That book's going to be different when he goes back anyway, because the book that read basically about how Quentin died. Obviously,
right.
now that Barnabas is there, he stopped Quentin
right.
from dying, and that was
That's
the way.
right.
So.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it'd just be more interesting that basically, now the family secret is like, oh, we gotta keep the secret because Barnabas is a vampire. We pass this on from generation to generation. So then you kind of thinking, well, how come no one told this at one point? So obviously that got left out somewhere along the way. Obviously, but I guess that died with, the grandmother on the bed. But you do kind of wonder the simple fact that, as said before, Elizabeth's daughter would have been born in 1910, 1920, maybe.
Right.
And so you think that she would have had some inkling about a Barnabas that came back from England, sort of thing, who was a vampire. Because, I imagine the storyline goes on. I mean,
somehow that is kept from both Elizabeth and Roger.
That basically these secrets that everyone's having are going to start being exposed left, right, and center to all of the various people in Collinswood. That and if you look at the way that your parents talk about old relatives, when you're just sitting there at the coffee table and they're having coffee with you, with your aunt, and they're like, "Do you remember such and such? They were blah." You know what I mean? It's like so.
Cute.
But I'm liking this. I have to sit there and I'm liking this. So
I'm enjoying this whole 1897 thing. So.
It's a great block.
I really got nothing bad to say about it, to tell you the truth.
So what we'll do is let's go very quickly. We got two more things to cover, and we'll do this very, very quickly, like in a snap round. And starting with you, Vickie, what's your best storyline and your worst storyline of this block?
Oh, best storyline. Well, the best storyline's definitely got to be Quentin coming into the scene. Worst storyline, I would have to say it's probably trying to reignite the Josette Barnabas relationship again. Let's not go there. I totally agree with all you guys on that one.
What about yourself, Jesse? Best storyline, worst storyline?
I was literally going to say the same thing. I resent the fact that they're trying to bring Josette and Barnabas back. It's like, why does she have to be attached to the fact that Barnabas is a vampire? I feel like those things are... I think the reason why we resent Barnabas as a vampire in the storyline is because it seems to be attached to Josette as well. And it's like, why do these things have to be related? I don't understand. It's like Barnabas reverts to this kind of caveman rendition of what a vampire is. And he's like, Josette. Like everywhere he turns, he just thinks about Josette for whatever reason. It's like, just be normal. It's okay. You can like other people. It's okay. But they just ignore that. And
it's okay to like other girls. Someone else anyway.
I hate to tell you. There will be somebody else beside,
right? But
and that's going to be later, and their name's
no. But I don't like that. I don't like that. I think I know who you're talking about. I don't like that. It's just so irritating. Anyway, and that's the worst one. And the best one, I would also say is Quentin, because he just kind of adds this new element to Dark Shadows, and he's a completely new character from what we've seen before. I feel like he just has more depth and more presence. And he's a really good actor. Like, they don't always add people on that you like immediately. I think you do get like a diamond here and there. Like Annalena Parker was a good addition. Marie Wallace was a good addition. David Selby was a good addition. And you just have these new characters that become regulars that add so much to the show. And it's either a hit or miss, I feel like, but this was definitely a hit for the show because they add so much. And it's not, he adds dimension to like the later on werewolf character, because I don't know if that's like discussed or whatever. So I think that's cool, because then you're not just adding supernatural characters for the sake of being supernatural. You're adding dimensional characters that have a presence, that have something that you care about. So I think that's cool that they did that with Quentin's character, because it could have been bad, but it wasn't. It was actually really good.
And what about yourself, Tom? Favorite storyline and worst storyline?
Scene 4 is the favorite storyline, where we are first introduced to the 1897 characters through the I Ching, and Barnabas goes through the door to the infinite, although, God, they do that voiceover prologue for at least a week. And you just get sick and tired, and then they have the different actors doing they didn't really have to get too original on that one, unfortunately. But other than that, I mean, the introduction to the family, the Magda and Xandor, Edith. What a great role for Isabella Hoops. May she rest in peace. The bringing back Humperdinck Allen Estrado, and the whole thing with the will. Worst is scene 1, where they're doing this turn of the screw thing, and maybe a bright spot was Abe Vigoda as Ezra Braithwaite. Kind of brought some new acting into the show, but other than that, you could really fall asleep looking at this. So that's my take on that.
My favorite storyline has to be Jenny. And I'm very, very intrigued by that. I thought when that started, I became very, very intrigued.
Right.
And I love the way that this whole build up of Quentin that we got, that kind of the drag up most of the time, but then we never knew where this was going. This feels like they've learned a lot from Falling Back in Time before, and they've actually learned some lessons here, and they've actually they're paying off a lot more than what we got with the Josette and that whole thing. This is paying off like very, very quickly, and I love that. I'm going to go along with bringing Josette's storyline back in. It's like it's been done, it's been tested, we've seen it, we've gone through years and years of this. So we need another year of this storyline, and why bring this back? I mean, keep an open mind and see where they go with it. But yeah, as soon as their name was, I just kind of rolled my eyes, not this again, sort of thing. Now we'll go for favorite character and least favorite character, starting with you, Jesse. Who's your favorite character and least favorite character of this block?
My least favorite is easily Ned Stewart. Punchable. Let me just put it that way. And my favorite, probably New Quentin, the one that speaks.
The one that speaks.
What about yourself, Tom?
Well, I gotta say, it's she was only on for a few episodes, but my favorite would be Isabella Hoops as Edith.
She did a great job.
What a great comic relief that was. Plus the establishment of the fact that, and then for somebody who had an extra role, she had some great scenes with both Jonathan and with David Selby, and the establishing of the fact that there was a secret and so forth. I only wish Craig Slocum was on so I could say he was the worst actor, but they got rid of him already. It would have been fun if they had an ancestor of Mrs. Johnson to come on to the show. But seriously,
who's wearing the same wig?
But let's see. So my worst, I would also agree, Ned Stewart. I wasn't crazy about him, and I think he was a heavy, and he really didn't do that much other than bully Chris around. What it reminded me of, that he's a reprise of Burke Devlin in a way.
Yeah.
Because Burke Devlin had an axe to grind, a chip on his shoulder.
I miss him though, terrible bad. I loved him.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is that he did have the chip on his shoulder.
He had a kindness. Burke had a kindness to some people and a roughness to something, and all you guys are
right.
All you guys one-sided because. Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. It's kind of like,
yeah,
what are you doing in this? What are you even here for?
but so here, Ned Stewart also has a chip on his shoulder, and for a different reason. But he feels that that Chris basically made his sister a vegetable.
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 She's a vegetable.
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 And the way he said the vegetable made it even funnier because he made it several different syllables. Vegetable. And he said it so seriously, like matter of fact. So it was just hilarious.
Yeah.
Vegetable.
I laugh for a good 2 hours after I saw that.
So Neb would be my worst character in this block.
What about yourself, Vix?
Well, I think all of them did so good. I think everybody was so strong in this block. I've just got to hand it to Joan Bennett and Marie Wallace. Really, they did such a fantastic job. And not Willie, but John Carlin with a new thing that they finally did for him.
Yep.
And the only reason I didn't like Ned is because it was just kind of a ill-placed kind of story, I guess. And he didn't go anywhere, And I mean, I just didn't like him as Ned. But I mean, he was just too touchy-feely with his sister, just like, quit touching your sister.
Exactly.
But that's it.
My favorite character, I'm going to go with Jenny. I think it's only because I'm so intrigued by her. I think
pretty good bet.
Wonderful.
Pretty good bet. No,
Wonderful.
Marie Wallace was great. Absolutely.
Yeah.
God, she's so beautiful.
Her character, she's probably one of the only few characters that actually come on, and the first scene is like, what the hell's going on here? And it really intrigued me. It's like, I'm like, oh my god! Because normally I have to
with
watch
the scissors.
Because normally I have to watch like a character in Dark Shadows, and it's normally after I've seen him in 2 or 3 scenes, and then all of a sudden it's like her. As soon as she came on, she had that mad hair, and she's going on about her baby.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh. So I'm gonna go with Ned Stewart, not because of the actor, but more as the character. It's just one of those characters that don't.
Yeah, it just didn't really go nowhere. To tell you the truth.
And I just before we go, and I'm just gonna, and I do have, by the way, with me the Dark Shadows Snow Globe, which was available from MPI, and it may still be, but it's a great little item. It has Collinwood, and you shake it up and you see it snowing, but it has Quentin's theme. If you just press a little button, and I'm just now David Selby. Whenever he referred to it on the show, he didn't sing it. He basically, just mouthed the words, that kind of thing. But the words are fun, and with Keith's permission, because it's not going to be too long, I'm just going to see if we can get this, and I'm just going to verbalize it for the new fans. The old fans have probably sung this a million times. Shadows of the night, falling silently, echo of the past, calling you to me, haunted memories, veiled in misty cloud, phantom melodies, playing soft and low, in this world that we know now, life is here and gone. But somewhere in the afterglow, love lives on and on. dreams of long ago meet in rendezvous. Shadows of the night calling me to you. I know Quentin didn't cough while this was happening. Calling me to you. Now, while the rest of them were laughing and going like, that kind of thing, but
I went to Catholic school. I'm just by my very nature immature because they did that to me.
Well, I never sang on the Literary License podcast before, and I don't think I ever will again.
We tried to get David Selby to sing. He wouldn't do it. Well,
Never did.
Forgot.
No, he doesn't have a singing voice. He doesn't even remember the words.
But he said he forgot the word. Yeah.
You forgot the words, and you have to give it to him. And he's done it at the Dark Shadows convention.
He did it on the Joan Rivers show, I think, too.
Oh, no kidding! Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's it.
It's where he juggled all those little bottles. He was juggling on the Joan Rivers show.
When was this? Joan Rivers wasn't on while Shadows was on, was it?
No. This is when he was on Falcon Crest and stuff like that.
Oh, he did Shadows of the Night when he was on Falcon Crest? No, I'm teasing. Anyway, so that is essentially the song that kept all the fans enraptured for at least two or 3 years. And of all, yes, Josette's theme is important, when you think of Shadows, but aside from that, that's the next one.
So this brings us to the end of our episode. Remember, next week we'll be carrying on with Soap, with the next 8 episodes of that. And of course, our next book's a screen story by Peter Straub and the 1980 film starring Mervyn Douglas and Fred Astaire and John Houseman. And of course, our 80s 2-for-1 will be The Fog by John Carpenter and The Changeling starring George C. Scott.
That is like one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So we got a ghostly next month happening. So it's good night for myself and good night, Jesse.
Have a good night, folks.
Good night, Vickie.
Good night, y'all.
Good night, Tom.
Yes, and happy Halloween, everybody. There I go. Okay, there we are.
And we'll be seeing you next week with Soap. We'll be dealing with demonic babies being exorcised.
Oh, that's right.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Now it's time to start the super show. Russian roulette, you can feel with your skin. Chances not great, 6 bullets are in. Now it's time to start the super show. Roller coaster with knobs and bells. Hold on to your partner and never get paid. Feel our style, feel the Russian style. Will it be so? You know. устаканится, все устаканится.